Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again,
you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening. Welcome, dissidents, one and all. This is the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular.
hello.
We are live tonight without Cornel West. Without Cornel West.
He's gonna be on in 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have him after.
We've got him
Sabby
coming
tonight.
on.
Indeed. We understand Sabby has Cornel West on tonight right now. Congrats to her. That's a huge catch. We'd have scheduled around it if we knew, but she didn't announce it until we had already sent out our stuff for this show.
We had RFK lined up, but then he saw my sketch.
Yeah, he bailed. He
saw the monologue.
We were ready to go toe-to-toe. Ready to go toe-to-toe. RFK versus...
as good a sense of humor as anybody, but that monologue was completely out of line.
It's over the line. Yeah, exactly.
Keaton actually does a much better RFK Jr. than I do.
Yeah, it's just a matter of committing to it. That's all. You're capable. You're capable.
Very good.
You just have to let your inhibitions go. And I feel like the guide, not that I'm an expert impressionist, but I feel like the guide to doing a good impression is not being afraid that you're going to do a bad impression. I feel like a lot of people, when they go to do an impression, they're afraid they're going to get it wrong, and so they don't commit to it fully. And when you don't commit to it fully, it comes out bad. That's my theory on impressions, and I'm sticking to it.
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm pretty committed, man. I just don't have as good a feel for that particular accent as you do.
Yeah. Maybe it's because you got more of a New York accent than I do, so it's a little bit more difficult to shed that.
No, you're hitting that quality that you're hitting it like dead on.
Hitting it. Indeed. Well, folks, I want to start by apologizing to the people of New York. My fine New York neighbors. I'm a little further upstate now than I was a couple months ago, and Russell's obviously in the city. What did I say last show? I joked last show. Ha ha. Isn't this a boring way to start the show, talking about the weather? Because we started 2 back-to-back shows talking about the weather in New York. Well, it turns out right now, the weather in New York is not so boring. So here is a photograph from New York City. As you can see there, that's Russell getting out of his Uber today,
that's yeah. They mandated electric Ubers in New York, so that's the newest experimental Tesla electric Uber model. It was very comfortable. It was a very comfortable ride, but it was a little smoky,
little hazy. As you can see, this is from the science fiction film Blade Runner 2023, as they should have called it. What was it, Blade Runner 2049?
2049. Yes.
Okay, well, here's New York City 2023 for real this time.
Yeah,
that looks like Lower Manhattan, maybe Chelsea area, right? Here's the Empire State Building. This is from the wildfires that are raging up in Canada, that the smoke... made its way down south here to New York. Here's a picture that a mutual friend of ours took in New York Harbor approaching the Statue of Liberty. So this is heading right towards the Statue of Liberty, not far away. The Statue of Liberty is not far off the coast of Lower Manhattan. Here is the view of the Statue of Liberty from the ferry. Not
Wow.
to be seen. Not
Wow.
to be seen. How about that?
So for real. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that ride well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've taken that ride hundreds of times. I used to give tours out there as well. So there you go. That is the weather in New York right now. That's the weather in New York.
Yeah, so this is because there's a low pressure system over the Northeast that is circulating the wildfire smoke directly into New York City just because God hates us. It turns out we are godless Jewish homosexuals like the conservatives always said we were.
Right.
And
Yeah,
now
exactly.
God is punishing us for it. So it's supposed to get better over the weekend. Like winds are supposed to come in, this pressure is supposed to move out, and it's going to be like moderate quality, but tomorrow's still going to be bad.
Yeah, no, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's really awful. Up here in the Albany area, we had air quality alerts yesterday through today. They're starting to subside now. Now they say it's just unhealthy for people with, like pre-existing respiratory conditions and stuff like that. But our air quality index was like in the 200s, which is, considered pretty dangerous. New York's was up in the 300s yesterday. So yeah, I mean, just an absolutely awful situation, especially
It's really strange. I've never experienced anything like it. People out west, they just call this summer, right? But New York, I thought it was you get that smell from a hot dog cart very often if they're like cooking certain things. You'll get that barbecue smell. And that's what I thought it was at first, and then I realized, holy shit. This is literally the smell of wildfire smoke from Canada in New York City. It's insane.
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I drove yesterday, so when I went out in the morning to work, I could smell it. It smelled like smoke. It was horrible. Absolutely terrible. So we hope if you're in New York, you're inside and safe and maybe got yourself something to eat, something to drink, and are watching this program. We thank you guys very, very much for being here. We have a great show for you tonight. We have a barn burner for you all tonight. Here's how good the show is this evening. The most boring topic we're covering is aliens. Aliens are the low light of the show. How's that? That, to me, is the most uninteresting of the topics. So when aliens are the low light, that's how you know you've got a good show planned. So we have a lot of stuff that we're looking forward to getting.
And look, people who are over at Sabby, we're going to go back. We're going to look at the chat. We'll find out who you are.
We'll find out who was there.
We'll find out who was. We'll confront you about it on the next show.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't even think about super chatting.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. Don't even think.
That's our money.
Exactly. Right. We kid, of course. In fact, we are going to make some adjustments to the schedule in July. As many of you know, we are talking about adding a third stream, a third weekly stream. So we will be going live 3 times a week. And I want to announce that in conjunction with taking this super chat from our friend from across the pond, Patrick Donahue, off to Boston tomorrow for a few days, a real Irishman. Look at that. Hopefully you hit the magic 10K subs figure by the time I leave again. Well, help us out, folks. Hit that subscribe button, please. We are closing in on 10,000 subscribers. Thank you, Patrick, for the €5. Keep up the great work. We appreciate that. Out of consideration and love for our Euro audience, which we have a lot of Europeans who watch the show, we are adding a morning stream starting in July. We have confirmed that. We were planning on doing them on Tuesday mornings. However, my wife works at a hospital, and the hospital needs her Tuesdays for some reason. It has to do with the NICU, which is the newborn intensive care unit. I guess her section has access to that section on Tuesdays, so they can't give her Tuesdays off. However, they can give her Fridays off. So what we're going to be doing starting in July, we will be going Sunday nights at 7 p.m. as usual, Friday mornings at 9 a.m., So that will be a great show for a new morning audience. Some of you guys can catch us in the morning, and our friends over in Europe and around the world can catch us a little earlier. They don't have to stay up till midnight. Of course, we're not going to do a Friday morning show after a Thursday night. So starting in July, once again, this does not take effect until next month. Starting in July, we're going to be moving the Thursday night stream to Wednesday night. So we'll be live Sundays at 7, Wednesdays at 8, and then Friday morning 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We are very much looking forward to that. The other thing we want to formally announce for real, we confirmed it this morning, Jordan Sheridan will be our guest on Sunday for a debate/discussion about the fissures in the sort of post-Bernie left. We're very, very much looking forward to that. That should be a really, really intense but fun and we hope rewarding conversation. That will be this Sunday at 7 p.m. He has confirmed it with me. We will be hosting him Sunday night, 7 p.m.
And listen, you fucking animals, we expect you to be on your best behavior.
Yeah, right.
We promised. Don't embarrass us in front of Jordan.
Don't embarrass us. Be nice. Be nice.
This is like we invited him to our tent in the desert, so to speak.
Exactly.
He is to be accorded all due hospitality from our harem and such.
Exactly. We hope that will be afforded to him. All right. I think that's everything we have in terms of housekeeping. So now why don't we go on to our second headline of the night. Abiding, thanks for the 99-cent super sticker, my friend. Tip jar is out, by the way, folks. Patreon, Substack, those sites are active. We are adding a third stream. We are having to give up work for that stream since it's a daytime stream. So the more super chats, the more Patreon memberships, the more Substack memberships, the more YouTube memberships we get in, the longer we can keep that going. So thank you guys all very much for your support. Why don't we get to our second headline of the night? We covered in recent shows the Roger Waters controversy stemming from his concert in Germany, where he dressed up as the rock star turned fascist character from The Wall. It then came out that the German police are investigating him. It looks like the U.S. State Department is actually supporting that investigation. They have spoken fondly of that, which is just absolutely outrageous. But Roger Waters responded,
and they're trying to keep him from playing Manchester.
That's the other thing. Yes,
Roger Waters of Pink Floyd trying to keep him from playing in England. That's like banning mincemeat pies from England.
Right.
You're going to ban the founding songwriter, one of the founding songwriters of Pink Floyd, from playing in England. The propaganda is just insane. It's just outrageous. It just seems like our elites more and more test the boundaries of how far they can stretch the narrative before it breaks, how absurd they can get before they get enough pushback that they have to back down.
Exactly. Now, Roger Waters gave a response of his own on the Double Down News channel. This was an interview as they sort of pitched it, but what they really did was they sort of cut together his responses into what looks like a monologue of sorts. We have posted the link to the entire segment in the description of this video. We encourage you to check that out because the whole thing is worth watching. We're going to play a few short snippets from it. These are quite short, but they give you an idea of his response. So first, just a little backstory. We got into this more when we covered these segments about a week or so ago. But in case you are not up on it, there was some controversy about him including Anne Frank in his sort of montage of names that he uses in his show to sort of pay tribute or remembrance to victims of state violence. So here he is explaining that part of the show. It's not very long, but this will get you a little bit caught up in case you missed our previous stuff on this.
That people are complaining about me mentioning Anne Frank and Shireen Abu Akleh in the same show, actually in the same song. It's a song called Powers That Be. And I put up the names of victims of violence from all over the world, like George Floyd, right? Blair Peach in England, Everywhere I went in North America, I put up one name from that town.
Okay, so there you go. Now, of course, he only plays major cities because he plays huge shows, right? But even so, it's kind of telling that no matter where he goes, there's a recognizable name of someone who has been murdered by the state in that city or in that town. That's quite remarkable, and he does that specifically to make that point. So he includes a local name that people in that town will know everywhere he goes. Okay,
so that's why. See, the show that I watched, I don't think the Anne Frank name was in there. I think I would have noticed it. He said in this interview that it was specific because he was where she was from.
Right, exactly.
When he put the name up. And again, you're tempted to say, how do they not get that? They do get that. They do get that.
Of course they get that.
What they're doing is trying to see if they can convince other people not to get that.
Of course they get that. It's the most obvious thing in the world. All right, so here he goes now getting into why he feels that the Germans are especially sensitive about this.
This is why I'm being vilified in Germany, is because I'm suggesting that you, the German people, have to persuade your government to change all of that. And I know why it is. You are blinded by the fact that you are German and your guilt about the Holocaust is so great that you've accepted the mantra that Israel can do no wrong, and anybody that says anything against Israeli policy has to be silenced.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. And I even tweeted out myself the other day. I hadn't seen this yet because I forget who it was, but you see it on Twitter every so often. Someone's tweet will get flagged and investigated by German speech authorities. And will say, we've looked into to see if this tweet violates any German laws or German policies, right? And it turns out it has, or sometimes it turns out, no, it has not. And I tweeted out something to the effect of, it's a pretty curious way to atone for your authoritarian past by cracking down on mean tweets, right? Like, if you really want to make up for the sin of Nazism, I can't think of a better way to do that than to allow free speech. So that's one area. But he's talking about more specifically the just unquestioning praise for the Israeli state as a way to sort of make amends for the sins of their past. It's just, not only is it wrong-headed, it's so spectacularly ironic given the apartheid nature of the Israeli state. I mean, it's really a tragic thing. It's a tragic thing that Germany, obviously, they do feel, obviously, very sincerely, this tremendous guilt for what they did in the 30s and 40s. That's all valid. They should feel that. We should feel that same guilt for our crimes against Native peoples, against African slaves, right? But at the same time, the way they are choosing to make up for that is by taking very authoritarian measures, like cracking down on free speech, and especially speech that questions the legitimacy of the Israeli government. The Israeli government, not Jewish people. Russell and I are both Jewish people, okay? You're talking about the Israeli state and the crimes of that state. It has nothing to do with the Jewish people at all, obviously. His father and his grandfather died in World War I and World War II.
And it really shows you, it's a case study in what civil libertarians have been arguing about the movements towards censorship here. That once you open the door, it never ends in a good place. It never ends where you want it to, because those laws can always be manipulated. I think it's not difficult to understand why a country with Germany's history would have developed laws like, no, you just can't have a swastika. I'm sorry, whatever, freedom of speech, whatever. I'm sorry. You just cannot walk around with a swastika in this country. I'm sorry, you just can't. I think a country that is in the unique historical position that they're in, it's difficult to see almost how they could not have done that. But you see where this kind of thing leads, because if there's ever been an understandable instance of censorship. It's Germany not allowing far right symbols and rhetoric in their country. But you can see here how even under the most ostensibly benign justification, in the end, it winds up being used as a tool of suppression.
Exactly. All right, here's the last piece of this interview that we will play. It's a short piece, but this was among the most powerful parts, I think.
Whether it's here or outside.
Okay, so this is in the West Bank. In case you missed that title, it flashed across the card. They intercut footage of him in that region visiting.
Whether it's here or outside a township in South Africa or in the Warsaw Ghetto during the Second World War or in Berlin in the 60s and 70s, there's something instinctively that this is wrong.
And it's unconscionable the way they treat. And they kill them. They just openly kill them. They shoot them all the time, dead. And they bomb them, dead. And so I've been doing everything that I possibly can to expose that bit, and I will continue to do so. And I will hope eventually to open the eyes of ordinary people in England and in North America, those being the two places where I live, to the evils of the apartheid state of Israel, until such time as they moderate their ways and start abiding by this Bible, this one.
There you go. We are going to give him the benefit of the doubt. We don't know what that book is. We can't tell. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that's not The Merchant of Venice. But we will.
We were going to Photoshop in Mein Kampf as a gag,
as a joke, but we can't.
But we didn't think they'd appreciate it.
Didn't think they'd appreciate it, and also we did not have the time. But there you go. So that was part of a 20-minute response that he issued. I admired his defiance. He didn't try and be accommodating to the people who are smearing him. He confronted these people directly as smear artists and scammers, which they absolutely no doubt are. And he said, look, I'm not going to stop speaking out against the apartheid state of Israel. I'm not going to do that. You owe it to humanity to continue speaking out about that. And if Germany really wants to atone for their past, they should do so by trying to create a better world for everyone, including the Palestinian people. And so I thought he did a very good job there. It was a very good interview. Sorry, go ahead.
The video was very moving. I mean, he's on the verge of tears for a lot of it. I mean, you could see how deeply wounded he is. Honestly, he seems very shocked that they would try to cancel him. And that's the word he uses, that they're trying to cancel him. If he's shocked, he hasn't been paying attention. But I guess when they come for you, it always comes as a bit of a surprise. The particular absurdity of trying to hang him for an act he's been doing for 40 years, many, many times in Germany, as we now know. The first time we did the segment, I was pretty sure he had done it in Germany, but he's done this bit in Germany something like 60 times.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been at least 40, they said, I think.
So the transparent political motivation of this, which in the end, and this is something even people who are sympathetic to the Israeli state have long said, people who are more reasonable, you're not helping your cause. If you want to dispel the idea that Jews secretly run the world and there's a big Jewish conspiracy and you can't cross the Jews, maybe don't try to suppress every single fucking person who sneezes in the general direction of Israel doing anything but supplicating themselves and falling to their knees. Maybe don't go after every single critic of Israel with everything you've got.
With everything you've got. That's the thing, is with everything they've got, indeed. I think I misspoke. You said it was 16 times he's done that act in
60.
Germany?
I think it's something around 60. Maybe I remembered it wrong.
Yeah, I'll have to check.
No, I think it's something like 60
it was a lot.
times.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're talking about all the cities in Germany he's played with, all the different tours he's done.
Right.
And then of course he played the Wall with an all-star lineup at the site of the Berlin Wall when the Berlin Wall came down.
Right. Indeed. We forgot to break this. We were supposed to break this, and we forgot all about it. But this broke literally minutes before we went on the air here. Trump says he's been charged in Mar-a-Lago classified documents investigation. So the president has been indicted once again. This time it appears to be on Espionage Act charges. So this is a federal charge. So I guess Ron DeSantis' stock rose a little bit tonight, along with Chris Christie. Chris Christie's in the race.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
Exactly.
Telling you the whole time.
Rose a little bit too.
Listen, I've been telling you this the whole time. This has been part of my calculation. I have said it from the beginning. This is part of my Ron DeSantis prediction. They will not let that man be the president again. They will not allow it. You know the they I'm talking about. They are not going to allow that man to walk back into the White House as the president. Period. I don't care what the polls say. I don't care about his mag. I don't give a shit. They will not let that man be president again.
What they are you talking about? Jews?
The Jews.
Jews?
The Jews. The JOOSs. Jews. We can't
I've been indicted by Jews.
No, what? They love him. He wanted to what did he do with Jerusalem?
He moved the embassy, right?
He moved the embassy to Jerusalem. They love Trump. No, the JOOSs love Donnie. They love Donnie. No, it's not our people. It's the other one. It's the ones who really run shit.
I have to pull that Eric Hartman sound drop now that we have the JOO bit going.
Yeah. You ever see what was that movie that was kind of like the history of the CIA with Matt Damon? Like it was a fictional movie, but it was played out against the backdrop of the CIA. It was very
Good Shepherd.
The Good Shepherd. It was actually good, and there's a great scene because the intelligence services and the State Department were infamously waspy in those days. It was really a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant club. And they have a scene where they're talking to an Italian. I think it's Joe Pesci, right? And
I know De Niro was in that movie. Did he get Pesci to play a role? I mean, I'm sorry. De Niro directed that movie. Maybe he played a part in it too.
I think it was Pesci, and he says something to him along the lines of, if Pesci says something like, well, why do you guys get to run everything? He says something like, this is our country. You're just living in it.
I don't remember it that well. It sounds like Pesci was not cast against type.
No, he was not. I think he was playing a mobster or something.
Hey, what the fuck you guys?
Although, I mean, it was founded by Wild Bill Donovan. It was Irish Catholic. But he went back to the OSS. Yeah, they're not going to let him be the fucking president, period. So once you acknowledge that, once you take Trump off the board, you have to ask yourself, so who wins? Tim Scott? I don't think so.
Well, that's
Chris Christie? No. So it's going to be DeSantis.
That's a lot of why I think Scott and Christie and even Pence, which is a joke, but I think that's a big reason why they're getting in. Because they were betting on something like this. They're thinking, if Trump gets taken off the board, I have a chance. And we'll see how big a chance they have. I mean, it's an uphill battle for anybody not named Ron DeSantis if Trump is taken off the board.
Even if he's technically still able to run when the primaries come, I don't believe the Republican base is that self-destructive. That a guy that the state has dead to rights. Look, it's not that I think he's being framed. He did this shit.
Deep state wins, bingo. Yep.
Right, yeah. Like he did this shit, but so did Biden, and they didn't go after Biden. Right. He did it, but that's not why they're going after him. They're going after him to make him so toxic that even if he's still eligible to run when the primaries come around, he's going to be so damaged. The Republicans want to win. They don't want 4 more years of Biden. They're not going to go for a guy who's going to wind up in prison before he can ever enter the White House. So they're going to go for the other guy. They're going to go for DeSantis.
Yeah, I mean, it's really right. As things pile up, their risk assessment is going to become more difficult to ignore, right?
That's
and
it.
so that, I think, is the theory of the case there. 432 people in the audience right here. Thank you all.
432 waking wonders.
Thank you all very much for being here. We'll take a few more super chats, and then we will move on. I caught this. MJ, Anti-Imperialist Party. I can't handle Cornel West interview. He spouts neocon and neoliberal talking points. Were you over there? You didn't like what you heard? Is that what it is?
All right.
Or are you talking about another interview?
You know what? You have inspired my first drop of my new Succession sound drop.
I love you, but you are not serious people.
That's a debut. We have a couple new sound drops debuting tonight. Anyway, thanks, MJ, Anti-Imperialist Party. I don't know if you're referring to Savvy's interview now, or if you heard like Kim Iverson, or if you switched from there to here. I'm not sure. But anyway, we appreciate you being here. Axel, thank you for the $5. Trump, the God Emperor, ordained an orange wave during the primary season, but this is a bit much. Talking about the New York skyline. Is that what that's in reference to? Thank you, Axel. Smell of pretzel cart. Long story short, pardon me. Not dirty water, hot dogs. Yeah, the pretzels do have a smokier smell to them.
But usually they're on the same cart. Like you don't have a lot of people who just sell pretzels.
No, you usually have hot dogs.
They're selling the hot dogs too.
That's true.
But the burning smell comes from the pretzels. Yeah,
indeed. Tusker, thanks for the $5. I swear I didn't even consider watching the Cornel West interview. Well, we will take your word for that. Tusker, thank you very much for the donation. Lars and Rune, thank you for the 99-cent super sticker. Thank you guys very much for your generosity. It really helps a great deal. We will get to some more super chats in just a few more moments, but we do have another headline that we're going to get to right now. We have a few more left here, but we're moving along pretty good. Oh, yeah, one scheduling note that we do have to add. We had some commitments come up that we cannot shake. So our next Patreon exclusive live stream will be Tuesday, June 13th. We will reschedule that for Monday. So Tuesday, June 13th at 8 p.m. on Rumble. That is our next Patreon exclusive live stream. There is a lot to cover in that live stream. We'll talk a little bit about what we're going to be covering when we do our patron scroll in a little while. But this next story is a story that we talked about a little bit on our previous show. We hinted at it, we teased it, and said we wanted to do something a little bit more thorough. This has to do with the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is being challenged in the Supreme Court right now. And there was an article written in Forbes magazine, of all places, by Victor A. Lopez Carmen. And I thought I should read this because this was an op-ed printed in Forbes, which is hardly, a commie rag, right? So this is not like coming from a biased source. They are even talking about the need to uphold the ICWA. So I'm just going to read a few brief passages. In the coming weeks, the Supreme Court is expected to release its decision on Holland versus Brackeen, a case that challenges the constitutionality of the Indian Child Welfare Act. The plaintiffs, non-Indigenous Texan couple named Chad and Jennifer Brackeen, claim that the ICWA's preference for placing Indigenous children with foster parents from their tribal nations discriminates against non-Indigenous individuals who wish to adopt Indigenous children. Proponents of the ICWA, which include 486 tribal nations, assert the law's preference for Indigenous families promotes cultural well-being and is based on the political status of tribes rather than the social construct of race. According to the Native American Rights Fund, the ICWA does this by upholding family integrity and stability and by keeping Indian children connected to their community and culture. The ICWA also reaffirms the inherent rights of tribal nations to be involved in child welfare matters involving their citizens. This is a bit later on in the article. Imagine for a moment the plight of an Indigenous child caught in the turbulent currents of foster care, their fate hanging in the balance of a system that often fails to understand or honor their unique cultural needs. Picture the ache in their hearts as they are uprooted from the warmth of their ceremonies, torn away from the comforting embrace of grandparents, aunts, uncles, and extended family members who embody the very essence of love and stability. These familial bonds, are not mere titles or labels, but lifelines. anchors that ground them in their heritage, traditions, and ways of being. For many indigenous children, these extended family structures are not only accepted but celebrated, with aunts, uncles, older siblings, and grandparents traditionally assuming the role of parents. Yet in the unfamiliar terrain of the child welfare system, this fundamental indigenous understanding is often lost or dismissed. Indigenous children are at higher risk for depression and suicide and things like that. And the main point of this story here that I think is important, especially as a couple of left-wing guys who often critique the excesses of identity politics when the left weaponizes it, this is absolutely an example of the right wing weaponizing identity politics to turn a political issue like tribal association and tribal sovereignty into a racial issue. So the key thing to know here is that these tribal groups are not considered races of people. They are political groups with protections and rights that have been afforded to them by the government in exchange for stealing their fucking country. Right? And so that's why this is an important thing to get involved in, and we hope that the Supreme Court rules the correct way on this. It's interesting because you would think with a right-wing court like this, they're sure to rule the wrong way. However, they just ruled in favor of some voting protections. Brett Kavanaugh sided against the state of Alabama in a racial gerrymandering case. Yep. And, I have to say this. Kavanaugh, as much as he does not ideologically align with me, and as much as I opposed his nomination very fiercely based on the testimony of Christine Ford, who I think was telling the truth, he has been a surprisingly even-handed justice. He voted to uphold the ACA. Now, he voted this way on this recent case, and there was one other instance where he had a surprising vote where he ruled with the liberals. So it's interesting to see how this case will go, but obviously we're hoping for the best because this is just, what a sick lawsuit to begin with. That's what you were saying, Russell,
Well, it's very rare in regards to Kavanaugh. It's very rare that you get a Supreme Court justice who literally has no theory of the law. Most of them really are deeply committed to a particular view of the law and its analysis and its application. Whether you agree with a Scalia or not, his decisions were not based in being on the take or trying to favor a political party, except for a certain 2000 election, maybe.
Which we're allowed to talk about starting tomorrow, by the way.
Starting
rules
tomorrow.
go into effect tomorrow.
That's why I leaned in.
Yeah. 3 more hours.
So starting tomorrow, I no longer have to make that magic gesture that protects us from getting strikes. A Clarence Thomas, who is literally just the fucking scum of the earth, not qualified to be on the court morally or intellectually. That's a rare thing. Most of them, whether you like it or not, they're very brilliant legal scholars with a certain view of the law. And that's why you wind up with decisions like the ACA decision. Everyone thought Roberts is going to come in and turn the court radically right wing. But if you look at their decisions, it's consistent with their theory of the law. So it's not really surprising that they ruled this way on Alabama if it conforms to their understanding of how the law should be interpreted. And that's why people are very often surprised when these right-wingers get on the court and make decisions like that, which is really not uncommon. It's really not, and then you have Clarence Thomas, who's a disgrace to the bench.
Right.
Why people brought this case, I can't even imagine the mind of a person who felt, you know what? Native Americans haven't suffered enough.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What we need to do is challenge their legal sovereignty and demand that their children be placed with whiteys. Because let's face it, that's who we're talking about, right? So why? Like, why would you? Or are these people cutouts for a conservative organization? They just got people who had standing to bring the case and put them up to it. But then why would the conservative organization pick this fight? For what reason? There is no shortage of children to adopt. Why would you do this?
It's a terrible thing. One of the things that op-ed goes on to mention is the fact that a lot of people very perversely blame a lot of the pathologies that disproportionately affect native populations on the natives themselves. Well, if they're more predisposed to alcoholism, suicide, depression, literally, I mean, you talk about white saviorism. We have to adopt these kids and take them out of this situation, when obviously, it just goes without saying, like, anyone who's blaming the natives for those problems, those are diseases of despair that they suffer from. And it's very fucking obvious to any remotely historically literate human being why they would be predisposed to those things.
Well, by that logic, we should take children away from parents in the Rust Belt.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. All right, let's keep going here. We have a couple more quick headlines to get to. We're actually moving along pretty well this evening. Doing not such a bad
pretty
job.
Good clip. Yeah.
Jax Page, thanks for the $5. Jordan has been awful to leftists on Twitter. The first thing he should do is apologize for going after people and helping to cause division.
Jax, what did we say? Best fucking behavior.
Well, he ain't here now, and that's fair. I mean, that's not vicious, that's not mean. I think that's a fair criticism, and we will get into some of that on Sunday. Absolutely, it's not going to be a softball, but he's good for that, man. He goes toe to toe, and we respect that about him, and so we're looking forward to it. That's why we wanted to do it. But thank you for the donation and for the point. I think it's a valid point. Franklin, have even the best lefties, Bree, Chrisman, been brain broken by true liberal support for a naked pro-war stance in Ukraine? Curious about your thoughts. We're going to talk about this with Jordan as well. I don't see much opining on this issue from a lot of these left people. Bree, I think, has been better on it. Chrisman, look, the Chapo Trap House show is basically a movie review show at this point. Like, they don't even talk politics anymore. So, like, I don't really even listen to them much anymore. They're very talented guys. Chrisman, especially, is a very, very, very smart guy. And so, I'm interested in what he has to say if he does an interview somewhere. But the Chapo show, I mean, it's still a decent show for what it is, but it's a talk show now. It's not really even a political show anymore, really. I haven't listened to them in a very long time on a consistent basis.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's very peculiar that they don't talk about Ukraine more than they do. All right. So now let me lose us a few members. Okay. So Breaking Points is interesting. It really is interesting. So you got this whole Krystal Kyle grift going on with Marianne and all of that. And, I think a lot of people in our space at this point like Sagar better on Breaking Points than they like Krystal. I hear that a lot. In the end, if you're looking for a cable newsy kind of thing that starts from the basic premises that I think we all start from, that the whole system is corrupt, that this is all a scam, it's all just people moving money around and pretending to believe in things, Breaking Points remains the best in the business in terms of getting your news coverage from that kind of a point of view. And I think of it because actually, when you look at this whole group of people, Katie, Bree, Jordan, Breaking Points probably does the most anti-Ukraine coverage, I would say.
Yeah, they're the most red pill on that in that space. In that
out of that club.
Right.
They are the most likely to do a deep dive on, hey, where's all this money going?
I mean, they're the only ones who've even mentioned the Nord Stream pipeline. Like, I don't think most of these guys have done a segment on it. I don't think they've touched it.
Which that is very strange, and honestly, it's hard for me to explain. Like, who are you trying to please? Like, you're already in this alternative left space. You've kind of decided not to have a career at MSNBC and CNN. And at this point, you'd have a hard time reversing yourself on that, although they do love a conversion story, so you never know. But I don't get why someone like Bree does not invite on, because she certainly has the juice to get on an authoritative anti-Ukraine war figure to discuss that with. So why they don't do more of that, it is very peculiar. I wonder if it is them reflecting a general American disinterest in foreign policy, but this kind of goes beyond foreign policy. This isn't about the inner workings of the EU's governing body. This is kind of important, right? It's strange. I honestly don't have an explanation for why they don't talk about it more. Maybe Keaton does.
I mean, I think it's born of the fact that Bernie did not emphasize foreign policy very much, and that these shows came out of the Bernie movement, and so there just isn't that curiosity about that. And I think a lot of these shows still come out of that school of thought, out of that orbit. I mean, that's the closest thing.
They're just domestic policy junkies.
Yeah, right. Right.
Maybe.
Exactly. That's what I have a feeling. Anyway, all right, let's move on. We have a few more super chats that are all about the same thing, so I'm going to read those while we do our patron scroll a little bit later, so we will get to those. But thank you guys very much for your support. You've been very generous this evening. We appreciate that. The more super chats, the more we can keep those regular 3-day-a-week live streams going. For those of you who came in late, starting in July, we are doing 3 streams a week. That requires a schedule adjustment. Starting in July, we will be going Sunday nights at 7, Wednesday nights at 8, Friday mornings at 9 Eastern. And so your support helps us keep that schedule going. And if you could sign up Patreon or Substack, you get exclusive live streams as well. Our next exclusive Patreon-only live stream is this Tuesday, the 13th at 8 p.m. All right, Russell. I told you we had a great show tonight because I personally think that the least interesting segment of the night is still pretty damn interesting. It's aliens.
Oh, we're pulling up the UFOs.
How can you turn down aliens?
Hang on. I gotta get my UFO thing going.
That was the whole point of my build-up, was to give you time to hit it.
Oh crap! Did I mess that up?
No.
There it is. No. I got it.
All right.
I got it. All right, cool. So
right, hold on. Before we start, let's set the tone. Let's milk this for all we can. All right.
There we go. So Keith might not be interested in this, but I am very interested in this. I think we have a lot of geeks in our audience who probably are interested in it too. Did you watch X-Files?
I watched the tail seasons of it because I was probably a little too young.
Oh, you watched the worst season.
I was too young for it until Robert Patrick came in. So I watched after Duchovny left.
I
know. I went back and watched some of the earlier episodes. No, the X-Files was a great show. The X-Files was such a good show. It's the only show that I've ever actually looked forward to the commercial breaks because they provided a sort of respite. Right? A cool down. Because it was so suspenseful, you kind of liked having that 4 minutes of car commercials and we could just kind of chill. You know what I mean? It was a nice break from the tension. But anyway, no, I like the X-Files just fine.
And you know what? They actually had a good send-off. It was a rare case of a good reboot. They did that 2 seasons.
A few
years back. It was actually good. They gave him a nice ending. Luke, Leia, and Han could only have hoped to have had such a nice, respectful send-off.
Yeah, I feel terrible about that.
Yeah, you don't care. You don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. You never walked around with a bathrobe pretending it was your Jedi robe. You fuck. All right. So U.S. has 12 or more alien spacecraft, say military and intelligence contractors. So in April, the director of the Pentagon's new program for studying UFOs said he had seen no evidence of alien spacecraft. On Monday, an Air Force whistleblower contradicted the Pentagon's claim, telling the Debrief and News Nation that the U.S. government is in possession of quite a number of alien spacecraft. I thought it was totally nuts, David Grush said. I thought at first I was being deceived. But Grush said he soon learned that United States government possessed quite a number of different kinds of non-human vehicles. Quote, I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers who came to me, many of whom I knew almost my whole career and who confided in me. So skipping ahead a little bit. So this is Harry Reid. I was told for decades that Lockheed had some of these retrieved materials, and I tried to get, as I recall, a classified approval by the Pentagon to have me go look at the stuff. They would not approve that. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence Christopher Mellon recently reported that he has spoken to more than 4 witnesses who say they know of, quote, a secret U.S. government program involving the analysis and exploitation of materials recovered from off-world craft. Some have supplied information to the intelligence community's Inspector General, others directly to the staff of the Congressional Oversight Committees. Grush's claims are shocking, and he has not made public any photographs, video, or written evidence to support them. He says he never saw any of the alleged non-human spacecraft himself, and in response to a query, Defense Department spokesperson Sue Gao reported what Kirkpatrick had said in April, basically that they had no evidence. So going on, this was the first story that broke. This is a Michael Schellenberger article that expands on this, explaining why you would not have any evidence that would be in the AARO, the committee that's supposed to be investigating this. Apparently they have, this is real spook shit. They have level 10 clearance, and the real deep state people have level 50 clearance. So what they're saying is it's not surprising that AARO would not discover anything, because nobody at a real level of security clearance that you would need to have access to this information would ever share it with them. They're a bunch of losers as far as they're concerned. They're the towel boys in the locker room. They're not gonna share this kind of thing with them. So but now you got Jim Jordan and all these people looking to take apart the deep state running Congress. So members of congressional intelligence committees and the intelligence community inspector general are taking Grush's claims seriously. The ICIG concluded in July 2022 that Grush's whistleblower complaint was credible and urgent, and said a source who worked with him, Grush's superiors promoted him rapidly due to his talent. So this isn't a lone kook coming up with this. He's a pretty credible source. Quote, his assertion concerning the existence of a terrestrial arms race occurring sub rosa over the past 80 years, focused on reverse engineering technologies of unknown origin, is fundamentally correct, said Cornel, a retired Army colonel who worked with Grush on the UAP task force, which preceded the creation of AARO. As is the indisputable realization that at least some of these technologies of unknown origin derive from non-human intelligence. Okay, so I don't know what's missing from my co-host that he doesn't find that interesting, but that is pretty freaking interesting.
All right, would you like me to respond?
I would like you to respond. I would like you to explain yourself, because you sound like a JOO right now.
Well, this is going to be a very JOO-ish answer I'm about to give you here, so just get ready.
Maybe there's aliens. Maybe there's not.
Well, yeah, maybe there is. Maybe there's not. More importantly, though, if they're here, what are they doing? Like, to me, aliens are only interesting if they come here and do something. Okay,
what I want to know is what they think they're going to find in our asses
for 50 years. What? They came all the way here. What do they do? How have they affected life on Earth? What have they done to us or for us? If they come to conquer the planet, that's interesting. If they come to share some life extension, technology or medicine, that's something. What, these aliens come, they hang out in a government, building? What are they like? Right? They're just hanging out in a government, facility for decades. I mean, these aliens are like the Dianne Feinsteins of the galaxy. Would they just come all the way here, just sit here for 50 years?
They're supposed to be dead. They're supposed
sit here and do nothing?
They're not saying they have live aliens. They're saying they have dead ones.
But were they alive at one point? So they crashed here and died.
Yes, that's what they're saying. That
I
they
mean,
have
this is even
actual
less
alien
interesting.
bodies.
All right, so they're
actual
aliens
alien
that came to
technology.
Earth and they're dead. All right, I mean, okay, all right, fine. Well, what's the story? That maybe there were aliens who made contact here dead?
Apparently,
you know what I mean? That's what it is.
Apparently, they're looking for something in our asses. Nobody's quite sure what it is.
You're right.
And all of these
me,
victims of abduction claim that they're poking around in there.
To me, the story it's missing something. It's missing that. Like
maybe human species is a very sought after delicacy on their planet.
Maybe, but there we go. There's something we could add to it. I watched a Breaking Point segment on that today just to inform myself, and it was literally, well, this guy seems credible. On the other hand, maybe he's lying. Maybe he's schizophrenic. Yeah, that could be, but it seems unlikely that more than one person would be making up a story. Yeah, that's unlikely. On the other hand, maybe they are, right? So, I mean, look, here's the thing. I believe in aliens. I believe in extraterrestrials. Now, mathematically, I don't know how possible it is that they would have found Earth. If they found Earth and they crashed here and they died, then, I mean, all right, fine. That's interesting, I guess. What do I have to say? What am I supposed to say about it?
This is a very Jewy answer.
Yeah, what am I supposed to say?
What do you want me to do? There's aliens, there's aliens. What do you want? What do you want for dinner?
What do you want for dinner? What do you want me to do about it?
We got any cheesecake left?
Yeah, right, exactly. Cheesecake left. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the people who reported it are very credible. You have an award-winning 45-year veteran of the New York Times who did this, and a woman who specializes basically in UFO science reporting. They're the ones who broke the story in 2017 that really gave this new life, showing that the Pentagon had all of this evidence, which was, it was a major turning point in people acknowledging that this shit is probably for real. So they're credible. People have questioned why they released it in these sources. They gave it to the Post and they gave it to Politico. They were going to take too long because the whistleblower was starting to get harassing phone calls. So they were like, all right, we have to release. I know you're still hung up on the cheesecake joke.
I'm just thinking what we should title this segment. Aliens are here. What do you want us to do about
it? Look, to me, the biggest argument against the idea that the government has this stuff has always been to me, so where's the spin-off technology? Now, some people will tell you the stealth aircraft and that kind of thing came from this. We have no way of knowing that, but my response to that would be, it's not like that jumps off the tech tree in a way that doesn't make sense. That's what you'd expect with something reverse engineered from an alien technology, that it would be so out of left field that it wouldn't naturally come off the technological base that we already have. Right? It would be like, where the fuck did that come from?
All right, we'll keep our eye on it. Michael Schellenberger, right back when you got something. Okay, write us back when you got write us back when you tell us why we should be invested in this.
My inclination overall, based on everything they're presenting, is that it's probably at least partly true.
Yeah, it seems like it could be true. Then again, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Let's eat. Let's eat. Yeah. I'm encouraged that some of the people in our chat got that humor, because that really was, that was real New York Jewish humor. So if you got that, you're pretty sophisticated in our book. Gotta say. All right.
A lot of Seinfeld fans.
Russell, my boy, you're up again. CNN.
Oh, shit.
Chris Licht.
Oh, God damn it. All right.
Got to find that again. From Axios. Here, I'll set up this story here. So the news broke, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that CNN parted ways with their president and CEO, Chris Licht. He was on the job for 13 years. He sort of tasked himself with sort of ridding CNN of their sort of center-left bias, a sort of MSNBC light in terms of their liberal media branding. And, you know, he did such things as booking Donald Trump for a presidential town hall. He also, you know, let Jake Tapper go on the air and read Biden's poll numbers and really talk about them for what they were, which is pretty awful. But now Chris Licht is out. And what a lot of people are sort of speculating and pointing to as the sort of deciding factor was this piece in The Atlantic, which, Russell, you read a bit of this piece, did you? It was 15,000 words. I did not read it because it was paywalled by the time I got to it. But CEO Chris Licht felt he was on a mission to restore the network's reputation for serious journalism. How did it all go wrong? So this predates his firing.
Correct? Yes. And I think that largely precipitated his firing. All right. So this article dropped and people were absolutely shocked. I don't know what Chris Licht was thinking, but he let a reporter hang out with him for 3 months. What's really strange about this is a reporter who wrote an infamous hit piece on Nikki Haley that she never lived down, that sent her to Mar-a-Lago begging for forgiveness. Now, after the neo-libs, the shit-libs, they already had it in for him because he fired some of their favorite people to watch while eating prunes to help them go to the bathroom. He got rid of Brian Stelter. He got rid of Don Lemon after moving him to a morning show that was also a disaster. But his greatest crime, by which these sins pale by comparison, was putting Trump on the air. And not only putting him on the air, but putting him on the air in front of a friendly audience. Now, in the end, this kind of reminds me of there was a very interesting documentary about the mafia in India, and they basically hired these cops to go out and kill these guys. And once they did, they started prosecuting them. Like, oh, we had no idea. We had nothing to do with this. So the CEO, David Zaslav, who's the head of Warner Brothers Discovery, the parent company at CNN, he put Licht up to all this. Now Licht had a background. He produced Morning Joe. He was the producer on the Stephen Colbert Show. Apparently, Colbert warned him not to take this job. So bit of prescience there. So Zaslav said, for a number of reasons, things didn't work out, and that's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And ultimately, that's on me, and I take full responsibility for that. Chris pours his heart and soul into this show, Zaslav said. Like all of you, he was in line of fire, and he's taken a lot of hits. We appreciate his efforts, his love for journalism, and his love for this, and we wish him every success and all the best. So ultimately, the Atlantic piece that really, cast him in a very negative light. He's at the gym lifting poles, saying Jeff Zucker, his predecessor, couldn't do this. Showing him seeming very lost backstage at the Trump event. Apparently, at the end, he said, "Well, that wasn't boring." All of this, it's not an accident that he got fired 3 days afterwards. So the Atlantic, with a 15,000 word article, was basically the neoliberal elite telling Zaslav, "You must get rid of this guy." Now, the more intelligent analysis that I've seen on this is there was no audience for what he was told to create.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
I think so too.
He was told basically to go create a new centrist kind of a network. Who's going to watch it? It's a catch-22. Like, you dumbed down the audience. You trained these SEALs to clap at just mindless partisan shouting, and now you can't get them back for the kind of thing that CNN was 30 years ago. Zaslav wants that kind of a network, but the audience that's left for cable news doesn't really want it. And when he goes ahead and he fires people like Stelter and Don Lemon, because the ratings actually got worse, because now you're pissing off what audience you had, which wasn't very much, but you really didn't do the things you would need to do to bring in a new audience. You would have to so radically reimagine CNN, the libs would regard it the way they regard Fox by the time you were done turning it into something like that.
Well, that's the thing. The CNN audience was an especially pathetic breed of lib. They are the insecure libs who like aren't comfortable hearing from Joy Reid that January 6th was worse than 9/11 because they feel like, well, yeah, this is Joy Reid, so if she's saying it, yeah, I agree with it, but can I really cite this to my friends because it's Joy Reid? She's sort of biased. If Jake Tapper tells you that January 6th was worse than 9/11, well, then I heard it on the news, right? But they want the same thing. They want the same confirmation bias. They're seeking the same thing from CNN that they were seeking on MSNBC. They just wanted a more subtle version of it under the guise of a neutral down-the-middle news organization. But they didn't actually want straight down-the-middle news. Jake Tapper reads out Biden's horrible poll numbers. He got shit for it on Twitter like you wouldn't believe for reading poll numbers. He wasn't even editorializing. He was just reading numbers, saying objectively, hey, these are pretty lousy poll numbers. They wanted him gone for that. What was the thing? Keith Olbermann said one of them should resign for some story that they did, or, I forget what it was. Some just crazy, just idiotic thing because they want confirmation bias. That's why they go to cable news. And once you stop giving it to them, they stop watching because they're consumers just like any other consumers. If you don't give them what they want, they will not consume the product, especially when there's MSNBC over there, which will give them what they want. And so it was ultimately a doomed effort from the start.
And taking a half measure like that, that's what I mean. Somebody like Chris Licht, I don't think anybody who has survived and gone up the ladder in this modern day incarnation of the news would have the imagination or the insight to figure out what you would have to do with CNN to make it substantively different from the other cable news networks and also attract an audience. They don't know that audience. They're not interested in that audience. They don't relate to that audience. I think they're barely aware of that audience. There's an audience. You would have to burn that place down and start all over again. Like the idea that you're just going to bring on a few more Trump favoring people and you're going to get rid of some of the most egregious hacks. And then you're going to pull. So who's coming now to replace the libs? So we're going to decide you're the Antichrist because you fired Don Lemon.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. All right, folks, we have one more quick headline segment before we get to our main pieces of the night. As you all know, this morning news broke that we lost one of the great religious leaders of our time. And we feel like we ought to take a moment to pay tribute to him. And so Russell put together this little video montage that we think you guys will enjoy very much. Shall I play it now?
Yes, rest in peace, Iron Sheik.
Say it as long as you can, because from here on out, whenever I'm in the presence of the Iron Sheik, I will be called by my rightful name, Ayatollah Blasi.
USA! Now in the ring we have the Iron Sheik. He wore a singlet.
I said, I'm tired. I don't want to work a good guy anymore.
Lifts those 75-pound clubs and begins to twirl them about.
None of us could do it. We all tried.
As you look at the controversial footgear.
And especially, you're not going to come out here and spit on the country where thousands...
The soil.
The thousands of military people that lay in the soil.
And you people shut up and don't call USA.
This is the main event.
Into the corner, nobody home. I bring you down, and I'm gonna kick you just like I kicked that lazy chumel. Woo! Woo! Belly, belly.
Rest in peace.
Rest Rest in peace, Iron Sheik. So
End of an era.
It's the end of an era, and you could see his old nemesis there, Sergeant Slaughter, stumbling a little bit in his grief over a fallen serviceman there. This was a time when Iron Sheik was in wrestling. The stuff that they did is almost inconceivable today. It was very campy. It was very funny. And when you go back and you watch it now, it's very clear that in a way they were doing camp satire of America. But it played on a level where people who were dumb enough to think that way, to really think that way, kind of bought into it. So they had it both ways. But going back now and watching it as a theater guy, like watching Iron Sheik and Fred Blassie doing that, they're doing like improv comedy. They're all up there doing improv, and to give them credit, I'm watching it now in a way I didn't when I was a kid. The stagecraft of it, they're pretty funny. Like they're pretty good. They were pretty quick off the top of their head playing these ridiculous characters. But of course, these characters were these absurd caricatures of Iranians and Samoans and Native Americans, and then you had characters like Sergeant Slaughter, people like Bob Backlund and Hulk Hogan representing America and American values. I haven't watched it, of course, since I was a kid. I know they toned all that down. I don't know if it's as funny and ridiculous as it was when clearly it was kind of a low budget camp production that they were doing. Like, is it as funny now when it's this highly produced Dwayne Johnson kind of thing? I don't know. I haven't watched it in decades, but the Iron Sheik was definitely part of my childhood. And I definitely had a lot of laughs on Sunday morning watching him do that act. So rest in peace, Iron Sheik.
And, Pat Robertson died as well. Pat Robertson. Right. Is Henry Kissinger even in this thing? Somebody sent that to us. What was the person's name?
It's Chris Mounts sent that to us.
Sent that over to Russell. Pat Robertson at 93 passed away. My theory,
only the good die young. Only the good die young.
I think Pat Robertson's death is God's punishment for the Bud Light boycott. That's what I think. It follows. It follows. What are the odds that those two things would happen so close together? All right, folks. We are going to shout out
God has pride. God has
pride.
God has celebrated pride by taking away Pat Robertson.
Indeed. We're going to shout out our wonderful Patreon community here. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to support this program. We appreciate you all very much. Patrons, like I said, Patreon members and paid Substack subscribers access exclusive perks such as call-in access to these live streams, as well as exclusive Patreon and Substack supporter live streams. The next one is coming up Tuesday, June 13th. We'll be doing an exclusive live stream over on Rumble. We're going to cover the new sort of court ruling about the Tennessee drag shows. We're going to be talking about episode 2 of the Tucker Carlson show and a couple other things. We're going to play pieces of the RFK interview with Mike Tyson that got pulled off of YouTube, so we're not allowed to show that here. We'll be showing those on our exclusive streams, which take place on Rumble. Those are private, unlisted Rumble live streams. We send you an email through Patreon or Substack, wherever you are subscribed. So that should be a lot of fun. We want to thank Nicole H. for signing up. She signed up at 8:44 p.m. this evening during the show. Thank you, Nicole. I will add you to the scroll when I get a chance. But right now, while this is playing here, why don't we go to some super chats? Thank you very much. These are all kind of related. So, Russell, you could take these since you're our resident DeSantis predictor here. Won't the indictment raise Trump's approval rating 15% when he becomes president and just say, I'm sorry, won't this indictment raise Trump's approval 15%? What if he becomes president and just says, no thanks?
Okay. We are way out from the first primaries. People say all kinds of shit when you're this far from the election. They love to shock the pollsters. They love to tell them that they're going to do things that are controversial, that they're never going to do when it comes time to actually make a decision. You cannot go by people saying, yes, Trump now, as an indication of what they're going to do in February. It's completely meaningless. You got a guy who's facing all of these indictments, very likely to be convicted. And then you got DeSantis, who is not just a brick through the window, who has actually accomplished in legislation many of the most cherished goals of conservatives. And you think they're gonna pick this guy who might not even be able to serve, and even if he did, he's only going to get one term? It's easy to tell a pollster, just to make them shit themselves, that you're going to vote Trump this far away from actually voting. By the time you get there, it's going to be a different story, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, you guys are all going to get a big laugh at my expense, I'm sure.
All right, we got a couple more questions that are related. So, Russ, by hook or by crook, they'll slop the spiel against Trump, even though he's more popular than DeSantis.
Well, and that's why I'm so committed to this prediction, because all things said and done, they just won't allow it. They will not allow it. If it all else fails, Trump's going to have an accident. There is no way they're letting that man back in the White House. Absolutely no way. DeSantis, they can live with. He's a deep state goon. They're not letting Trump back in the White House.
Yeah, no, I mean, he is a deep state goon. I mean, that is a really depressing election between Joe Biden and Ron DeSantis. That is a situation where the bad guys truly win either way.
One is scooping the pudding with
way, I would say.
One is scooping the pudding with his fingers. The other one is dribbling it onto his shirt.
Yeah, right.
That's we're going to call it the pudding election.
It's just a matter of where the pudding drips. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Franklin, once again, thank you for the $4.99. Russell, what makes you think this indictment won't make him unbeatable? Like, really?
Asked and answered, counselor.
Yeah, he answered that. Look, what I would say is, Franklin, I think the indictments might actually raise his popularity. What will not is a conviction, right? So, like, let's say he actually goes to jail. Right. At that point, his stock price goes way down. And I think we are going to get a verdict, at least in the New York case, which is the far weaker case, it seems like, than this one. I don't know exactly what will happen, but yeah, there's no doubt, like, these kinds of questions will become more important as the, primary calendar becomes nearer and nearer.
Exactly. It's very easy for people this far out to just say crazy shit. Every election I've ever experienced this far out, there was some kind of crazy candidate. Oh, did you see the numbers on Ron Paul? There's always some shit at this stage because, and it's partly because the media.
Yeah, what's his name? The guy who died, Herman Cain.
Right, Herman Cain. Yeah. That's a better example.
Yeah.
Yes, Herman Cain. There's always some shit like that. And frankly, until this last election, Trump played that role in the media a few times. That's part of why people got fooled and didn't take him seriously when he ran in a very different environment than he had been just a kind of tabloid figure in the past.
Right, indeed. Scott asks, are your shelves bowing from the books? All right, so Russell addressed this in the last show. You want to address this quickly before we go on?
It is going to get fixed because I'm starting to become concerned. It's all fun and games until you die in the middle of a show.
Yeah, exactly. Although it would be really funny from an audience perspective to see those collapse.
I mean, look, if I had to die suddenly, I'd prefer it to be in such a humorous way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, hopefully they wouldn't hit you, but those are pretty close behind you, right? They'd hit you. They couldn't fall off without hitting you.
No.
Okay. No. All right. John Locke, thanks for the $20. We appreciate that. I haven't seen you here in a while, John Locke, but thank you. Welcome back. Laugh.
We're going to debate the proper workings of government one of these
Exactly.
nights.
One of these days we'll have you on the show. We'll get everybody here. We'll get Adam Smith here, right? We'll get the whole gang. I remember seeing Paul McCartney waving his Ukrainian flag on stage. He learned nothing from Lenin, and this indicates some cannot be saved from dumb moral relativism. Less semen, more pay.
We've coined a phrase.
We've coined a phrase. When was that from?
Did we even do that on our own show? We did that on,
or was that on RBN show? They're blurring into each other. I don't know. We've been doing so much lately. Yeah. By the way, shout out to RBN for having us on Monday, and shout out to our good friend Jose Vega for having us on his show last night. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, one of the things that always kind of annoyed me about McCartney was the fact that he seemed really hesitant to embrace a lot of that John Lennon spirit, a lot of the political activism, even after Lennon died. And I get it, that wasn't his thing, and obviously it goes without saying those guys are just genius songwriters, and so I don't have it in my heart to trash him, obviously, but yeah, that was always something that I was certainly conscious of. Indeed.
If
and
Lennon
I don't know
were
about
alive
you.
today, he'd be full MAGA.
Right. He'd be ultra MAGA.
He'd be ultra MAGA. He'd be wearing the hat.
He'd have the shirt, right? Instead of saying New York City, he would say ultra MAGA. Yeah.
Oh, I've known Donald for years.
Yeah, right. The Studio 54 days. Pay love to Mohammed Tamimi killed by Israel. Is that recent? Is that a recent one, Damas? Thank you for the donation and thanks for the message.
Thank you.
All righty. We're going to get to some more super chats later on, but it is time to get to some main segments. 474 people strong in here right now. Thank you guys all for being here. Please hit that like button. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button. Let's see. Where were we at in terms of subscribers? We started the show 9807. Where are we at now? 9807. All right. We need you guys to hit that subscribe button.
Was that the John Lennon joke? All right, I'm gonna really upset the hardcore Beatles people. So I was 10 when John Lennon was assassinated, and my memory of that day is my mother calling my aunt and saying, "Why couldn't it have been Ringo?" It's a true story.
True story. She actually said that?
She did. She said, "Why couldn't it have been Ringo?" And I was curious about it. I was like, "Why do you say that?" She was like, "Well, he didn't stand for anything. John stood for something."
She rationalized it.
That's what she told me as a 10-year-old. Explains a lot, right? Explains how I wound up here.
Explains a lot, indeed. All right, folks. We have some segments that we're very excited for now, so we're going to get started here. Gray Zone reporter Liam Cosgrove caught up with Representative Jamal Bowman on his way into work earlier this week and asked him about his support for continuous funding of the Ukraine war. So we caught up to him twice. We're going to play the entire thing. This is just so fantastic. It is just extraordinary what an idiot Jamal Bowman makes of himself, knowing he's on camera. So here's the first interaction. This is a very short one. This is on the way into work. This is, I guess, in the morning.
You want to discuss?
The Donbass and Crimea?
I don't know if I know much about that. I need to get into the details and learn some more about that. Yeah.
You know what those are?
No, tell me, but educate me.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your opinion on the war for Ukraine? Do you support U.S. aid to the war in Ukraine?
Yes.
Why do you support that?
Because Putin's a madman, and we got to stop him. But I'm anti-war in general.
Okay.
I'm anti-war in general,
except for the wars that are actually happening.
Right, just not this one.
I'm more anti-historical wars that I won't have to vote on.
I'm more anti-war in the abstract.
Crimea, those are the central regions in Ukraine.
Like Vietnam.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm against the wars that happened 50 years ago. Yeah, exactly. A very strong record on opposing those.
In which started the war over those regions.
Okay.
So.
Okay, to the beach.
Okay, good to meet you. So he goes in. Now, apparently, this guy had nothing really much else to do today aside from troll Jamal Bowman, which, lucky for us, he did. He caught up with him. I guess maybe this was lunch or maybe this was the end of the day. But here he is waiting for him when he gets out.
How do you put that
Congressman Bowman.
Troll Jamal Bowman.
Yeah, right, on a resume. Exactly. All right, here you go.
Congressman Bowman.
What's up,
Liam,
man?
we just spoke.
Come on, man. What's up, man?
But I got to follow up because you went
No,
inside.
you don't got to follow up. Leave me alone. Talk to somebody else.
I will, but I have to ask you.
Real man of the people, real accountable to the grassroots, Jamal Bowman, this squad. No, you don't leave me alone. No, you don't, man. Leave me alone. Wow.
It's like the guy asked him to supersize the fries right when he's getting off work.
Yeah, right. Oh, come on. Yeah, no, this used to happen to me when I worked at Pizza Hut. The Pizza Hut would close at like 11 o'clock. And at 10:55, some drunk guys would come in and order cinnamon sticks, which was the biggest pain in the ass because you had to use separate pans for the cinnamon sticks. You couldn't cook the cinnamon sticks in the same pans that you use for the pizza. So you had to take out all the pans that you just cleaned and make cinnamon sticks. And then you have to wash them again. That's like what this guy is to Jamal Bowman. Coming in here at 10:55 ordering cinnamon sticks.
Drunk.
Drunk, yeah, exactly.
One more question.
Why?
Because you didn't know what the Donbass and Crimea were.
Yes.
But you still support aid for Ukraine.
Yes.
It was central to why the war started. So shouldn't you?
Well, that's what you're saying. I got to dig in to see. I'm sure others have another opinion on why that war started as well.
Well,
Putin's a madman.
There are multiple factors. Why do you think
Putin's a madman?
Come on, man. Why you got
That has to be a sound drop. Putin's a madman. We have to put that into our.
You know what I meant to put in. She has a cat named Vagina.
Yeah, Vagina. Yeah, she's a cat. You know what the cat's name is? Vagina.
Vagina. He takes a beat before.
He takes a beat like he knows this is gonna go. Yeah. All right, here we go. More.
Just fluent. Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Good to see y'all. Because our foreign policy is crap, and we solve problems with war.
Okay,
and
so
the
this is why the war
military-industrial
started.
complex is mad powerful.
Okay.
And they control members of Congress. That's why wars start. You know this.
I agree with that.
You already know I know this.
But you support aid for Ukraine.
Come
what
on,
about a
man.
diplomatic solution?
Am I the one you should be talking to about this? Y'all tripping, man.
I'm asking
What do you mean,
Congress,
what about a diplomatic? Of course we want a diplomatic solution. I've called for that. Others have. You don't know this?
But if you keep giving the money, does it not prolong the war?
Listen, there's a military-industrial complex that has been in place since America was founded. There needs to be a movement. What's up, brother? Chilling. To stop it. Members like me.
All right, so we've got two clips tonight that are Christopher Guest in his prime. Like if Christopher Guest made a movie about politics, this would be a scene.
Yeah, this would be in it. I love. Okay, so here he goes. There needs to be a movement
in Congress.
Will you vote in favor of giving money to that complex?
That's a vote.
Ukraine.
That's a vote in that moment. For that issue at that moment.
Yes, that's what he's saying.
That's it. It's not like something I'm going to vote for every time I'm here for 20 years or 10 years
but
or
I agree
5
with you
years.
on the complex, but
so he's basically saying, give me some time to break myself in. Give me some time to get used to Washington. And over time, what? You're going to vote for war less? No. If past this prologue, as you remain in Congress, you'll get worse. And you're starting out on a pretty bad foot. And this excuse, there needs to be a movement behind me. This is what the squad always blames all of their failings on.
Right.
Well, you're not organizing enough.
Right,
You're
yeah,
not
yeah.
giving us
It's your
enough
fault.
confidence
It's your
to
fault.
come in
It's
here
you.
and shake the system because you guys need to organize more behind us, right?
That's very capitalist.
Well, they did organize behind you. They had a Rage Against the War Machine rally. A couple thousand people turned up. Why couldn't you guys go there and speak? There you go. There's some organization. No, it wasn't there.
Not give money to the complex. I'm just trying to understand your rationale.
What do you mean? Why are you asking me about my rationale? I am totally
You're a
not...
prominent guy, and you vote for the funding.
There are many people in there who actually support war and hate and want to raise military funding every year.
I agree.
I voted against raising military funding. Did you know that? You didn't know that? You did not know that.
I did not know that.
See that? So look at
you
my
see,
full
you
record.
see, they told me ahead of time. We know that you play this whole bullshit, I'm a progressive man of the people thing. We have enough votes to pass it, so you're allowed to vote against it and then tell people that you voted against it to pretend you still stand for something.
Exactly.
You didn't know that? You didn't know that?
You didn't know that the military budget passed with like over 400 votes, and I was one of a few dozen to vote against it or whatever the final vote was, right? Yeah. So did you know that? Oh, you didn't know that.
You didn't know
I
we
cast
get
a
permission?
meaningless vote against the Pentagon budget? Did you not know that? Were you aware of that, sir?
You didn't know if it was a close vote, I would have voted the other way? You
Right.
didn't know that?
Exactly. And there's some people in the chat, by the way, saying, no, he didn't. Wrong, he voted for it, who are saying he did vote for the Pentagon budget, which I honestly am not sure of, because honestly, that is of such little consequence. Even if he did, it wouldn't be any kind of answer, because as we just said there, it has such overwhelming bipartisan support. It's a symbolic vote, even if he did cast it.
It's one they can get away with. I mean,
Exactly.
that's like the answer. Unfortunately, I didn't expect to ambush Eric Adams. When I ambushed Eric Adams, he gave me a bullshit answer because I confronted him about being for solitary confinement, and he claimed he was against it. He told me, look that up, and next time you see me, I want you to say thank you, Eric, for being against solitary confinement. So I go and I look it up. This fucking scumbag is for punitive isolation.
Yeah, punitive isolation. Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it's not solitary confinement. It's punitive isolation. You cannot make that Orwellian shit up.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. By the way, folks, this is teasing out the next segment. I have now officially ratioed the Nation magazine. Pretty proud of that. That's a pretty good accomplishment, I will say. Pretty good accomplishment. We'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
I ratioed them. That's pretty good. Nation magazine has 1.2 million followers. I have about 4,000. So it's pretty good. Little old me could ratio the Nation. Not too bad. Anyway, we'll get to that later. I don't want to step on it. Here we go. More Jamal Bowman.
Right.
I had to break that news as urgent breaking news. I got a ratio against the Nation. All right, here we go.
Before you come to me about one single vote.
But you should also look at what starts a war before you vote in favor of funding it.
I know what starts a war.
This is amazing.
What do you think started the war in Ukraine?
Absolutely amazing
Who is
answer.
a madman?
Okay, not that.
Okay, there's a military-industrial complex. He doesn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. This is Western oligarchy, imperialist crap. That's what...
What started this war? He doesn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO. This is Western oligarchy imperialist crap. I don't know if you know, but Western refers to like us and the rest of Europe.
Yes.
Russia isn't referred to as the West in this context. So if you're blaming Western imperialism, then what you're really blaming is NATO expansion. But that's not what you just said. You said Putin doesn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO, and so his war is a war of Western imperialism, oligarchy crap. I mean, this is just laughably ignorant and stupid. I mean, it is amazing how little he knows and how confident he just feels in barking this out. I mean, it's incredible. This is Western oligarchy imperialism crap. What?
Well, you could see that he has ideas in there from whatever activists. I don't know a lot about his history before he got in Congress. I assume he came up through certain left kind of activist groups, and you can see he absorbed some of that foreign policy view without completely understanding it, and he's reconciling that with having to go along to get along in Congress. You know, there have been a few people who have said this, you know, reporters who have spent a lot of time in Congress who don't care about burning the bridges, who have said, if you go and you talk to members of Congress, you'd be surprised how stupid they are. You would be surprised how many dumb, ignorant people who really don't know anything about the things they're voting on are in Congress. Exhibit A.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exhibit A. Well, this is what I said earlier in the show. A lot of people who came from, you know, DSA, which Bowman did, and the Bernie movement, which Bowman did.
So that's where he picked up a lot of this shit.
Yeah, but they also have a lack of curiosity about foreign policy. They just don't know it very well. They're just not well versed in it. And look, I will admit, when it comes to Eastern European conflicts, I wasn't well versed in it either. Luckily, I'm a fairly quick study, and instinctively I knew, as soon as the war started, that this was preventable and should be opposed every step of the way, and we should pursue peace as soon as possible. That's just an instinct I have as a left-wing person, which apparently is nowhere to be found in his head. Let's let him keep going.
It is.
Okay.
You know this.
So you're saying it's a clash? You're saying it's a clash between both Putin and the military-industrial
man,
complex.
I'm
trying
done,
to get to
man.
the bottom
I'm
of your
done.
rationale.
What are you trying to get to the bottom of? We have a society that built nuclear weapons just in case they had to blow up a city. We've been inhumane to each other for centuries. We have to stop being inhumane to each other.
I totally agree.
Okay, that's
Okay,
it.
so now you're going to go
That's
with
a
the Pablo.
single vote at a moment in time for something that's
a
happening.
single vote at a moment
Ukraine
in
is a
time.
democracy in that area.
Go to the old Kamala
you mean like the way physics work? Time, space, dimension, working
I mean,
together?
that's the Kamala Harris answer. This is making Kamala look like the valedictorian of the class here.
Well, now we understand how she got where she is.
Yeah, exactly.
World.
Look at
Putin
the
is
competition.
Yeah,
a
competition.
crazy dictator. We are a democracy. We are supporting that democracy and defending itself. That's what that vote was about. That's what support for Ukraine is about.
He
In
said
general,
about
I want
4
to end
different
to
things
all
about what that
wars.
vote is about.
You can't end all wars with one single vote, one single time, when a nation that's an ally is under attack.
But don't you think that when those weapons start being used on Russian soil, and that, and you got to also learn why the war started, don't you think, you're giving money towards something that's potentially escalating it even further, killing more people,
There's a
even more dangerous?
Listen, there's a military-industrial complex, okay? It's been in place for hundreds of years.
Yeah, we understand.
We have to
that.
stop that complex.
Maybe
Okay?
not hundreds.
Totally with you there.
All right, so let's organize to stop it instead of trying to design gotcha moments for members of Congress. Okay? Do you want to work with me?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. Call my office and let's organize to figure
The
out how to
old
do
call
that.
my office
Call
trick.
my office. He's here now. He's here now. He's talking to you right now. You don't seem very susceptible to his message. You don't seem too convinced by what he's saying. Call my office.
I mean, it is interesting that he keeps coming back to the military-industrial complex, and also not only does he keep coming back, like in the end, I think that's what he actually believes, because there's no advantage in saying something like that. God knows what kind of a phone call he got from Darth Pelosi after he said that shit.
Right, yeah, exactly.
She did the choking with the force trick on him after that. But he seems to have absorbed like a conspiracy theory flavored version of the military industrial complex. Like it seems to be mixed up with the Freemasons or some shit. Hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
The founders of Raytheon were meeting in the sub-basements
Right.
of Trinity Church.
Right, exactly. Yeah, President Jesus, the MIC's useful scapegoat for the needs of imperialism. Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
How things stop through organizing and through movements.
Movements.
So from the abolitionist movement to the suffrage movement to the civil rights movement and many other anti-war civil rights and many others. So you want to work with my office to organize to do that?
I do.
Let's do that.
I do, and I will.
Call our office. Follow up.
I do. And
Well, they had a couple gray zone people at that Rage Against the War Machine rally. I'm sure you guys knew that was happening. Nobody showed up. I mean, just the excuse, well, we need movements behind us. Because what's the thing about a movement? Movements are never big enough, right? You can always say the movement needs to be bigger before a politician can respond to it. The fact that this guy obviously lacks the knowledge and the courage to act on what limited knowledge he has, which is that there's a military-industrial complex, is self-evident in this video. He reversed it completely. Why'd the war start? Well, we got Western imperialism, oligarchy crap, right? I mean, he doesn't even know what the word Western refers to in this context, right? I mean, it's so obvious.
I'm just saying.
I gotta go.
I've
given you a lot. Okay, I've never
seen
seen you before.
I just got
you
here.
come to me with record. You're in my face recording.
This is how I do it.
All right, that's how you do it. I've never seen you before. You're in my face recording, asking me questions, trying to. People
like a
done
member
this to
of
me
Congress?
before.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see what you
It's almost
post,
like you're a member of Congress.
and we'll see how people respond. Because I said other things that you
Yes,
agree
we
with.
will see how people respond. Yes, you will. Indeed. Right about that, sir. Correct about that.
That you probably won't post.
I agree with it, but
post
let me
those.
ask you this, because you say military-industrial
How
complex,
many-
but don't
Yo,
you
I'm
see
good,
the,
I'm good.
Don't you see the connection between?
I see the connection, man, but I just got here 2021. You got people here 50 years. This industrial complex
see?
in place
There you
hundreds
go.
of years. Come on, son.
That's ultimately what
Yeah,
they're
Yeah,
going to
you didn't even know, right? Because they know what you're going to do usually. You didn't even know that I voted against the NDAA being raised multiple times. You didn't even know that.
No, I didn't.
All right, you should look that up and post about that too.
I will.
All right, I'm out.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
See, I feel like that's where he was going with it. He was kind of saying, well,
Look, I'm new here.
these people been here longer. They're responsible. Why are you breaking my balls?
Right. He's just saying, hey,
don't
I'm
play,
new here.
Play a blade in the game. That's basically his whole defense.
Yeah, that was the whole act. Pretty extraordinary piece of video there. He gave him so much time, and he just made such a fool of himself, such an idiot of himself, that you don't even have a curiosity about Crimea and the Donbass. You don't know what those are. You have to look into that. Now, just so we don't, look like we're singling him out, Bernie gave a similarly pathetic answer a few months ago when they asked him about Ukraine. He says, it's not an issue I've looked into all that much. This is what I mean. This is the blind spot of the whole DSA movement. And this has to do with a lot of why a lot of left peers in our space don't cover this as much. They just don't.
It's an interesting point. I mean, honestly, I hadn't really thought too much about it until you brought it up. Like, yeah, it is weird. Like, you got Bree, you got Katie. Like, she's not afraid to take a brave stance. She got fired from the Hill over her stance on
criticizing Israel.
So why would you not talk more about this? Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a very inward focused movement, very concerned with domestic policy, not without a very articulated theory of foreign policy. And it's something, that's not just the DSA. I mean, more broadly, something that always strikes me reading the writings and the speeches of 60s and 70s radicals is they almost never talk about their movement without putting it in the context of a global struggle. And that language and that mindset has really been lost across the board. It's been lost in the civil rights movement. It's been lost in economic movements. There's been a big turning inward and a lack of awareness of our struggles as being connected to a broader struggle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is weird because we have better communication than we've ever had. If there was ever a time you should be able to have that vision, it would be now.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll take a couple more super chats, and then we'll go on to Krystal and Kyle. That'll be a fun one. Long story short, Iron Sheik had a tag partner, Nikolai Volkov. You remember him?
Yeah, vaguely. When I was doing research for this segment, it was interesting because here and there, I would see wrestlers who didn't really make it, who were forgotten, and he's one of them. Like, yes, I remember him, but he didn't become iconic like the Iron Sheik.
All righty. Virtuoso, rest in peace, Pat Cooper. Oh, he died too? Wasn't he, was he on the Imus show? He was a radio personality, if I remember right. I remember back in the day. I don't even know who that is. Cooper. I think he was like, I don't know if he was a comic or whatever, but he was on the radio for a bit. But yeah. All right, so that's 3 high-profile deaths today. We're at 9808, everybody. Can we hit that subscribe button, please? Is that too much to ask? Please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. We're closing in on 10,000 members, 10,000 subscribers, by the way. You can also hit that join button, which is right next to the subscribe button. That helps us tremendously. There are certain perks associated with becoming a member right through YouTube. You get those loyalty badges. Now that we've had our membership program for more than a month, some of you guys who signed up early should have a different badge color now. Your loyalty badge should have upgraded. Which, speaking of upgraded, we never created the custom emojis. We have to do that. We forgot about that. Yep. Sorry about that. We will get on that. All right. Song 27. Thanks for the $19.99. That's very generous of you. Russell, wrestling is losing the humor now that Vince is gone. Vince McMahon, I guess. Once Vince came out in a do-rag saying, "What's up, my..." Well, we can't say that. Didn't say the word. As to John Cena.
I have a friend who's in the film industry, and he's working with John Cena right now. Apparently, that guy, to kind of foreshadow our later segment, he's almost like the Greek classical world ideal. He's like the scholar athlete. He actually, the embarrassing video of him apologizing to the Chinese. When I first saw that, I assumed he had spent a lot of time, as an actor, he probably has a good ear, just figuring it out, but not really knowing. No, that motherfucker speaks Mandarin, actually.
Oh, yeah?
He says whenever he's not in front of the camera, he's sitting there studying, reading a book, like he's this Renaissance man.
Oh, wow.
He's this like athlete scholar.
Interesting. This is an interesting question I want to get to. Beboposaurus, thank you for the $10. We appreciate it. What do you think the odds of millennials and Gen Z becoming just as reactionary as boomers are now? I think small. And the reason I think the odds are small is because, see, the right-wing trajectory of boomers is not just because they got old. It's because they grew up in times when it was easier to make a living and much easier to buy into the bootstraps narrative. I mean, the boomers, not only did they grow up in this sort of post-war golden era, right, but then they also hit their prime earning years in the 90s when it was easy to make money, right? And so, like, to them, the American experience is one of aspiration and hope and economic mobility, whereas the younger people now are not going to have the same experience. You know, millennials are in their prime earnings years right now, and they're not earning nearly as much as the boomers did when they hit there. So, no, I don't think they are on that same sort of course. But that's a very good question.
You know, when they did a poll in the 60s that was very interesting. They found that the boomers had more in common with their parents than with any other segment of society in terms of their values and the way they looked at things. Yeah, you have to remember, when you're looking at Woodstock, that's a very small number of people in that generation who were doing that, who were part of this counterculture. I mean, everyone was affected by it, but that's a very small number of people who were committed to it in that way. Also, remember, they've done studies showing this idea that people get more conservative as they get older is actually bullshit. What it is that if you're poor, you die. Right. So the only people left are these people who spent their lives invested in accumulating a lot of money, who have gold-plated healthcare plans. So it gives you the impression that boomers are conservative. It's not that they're conservative. It's that the ones who aren't are dead.
Right. They sort of are finalists in the American Hunger Games, if you will.
That's it.
All righty. So we got a great segment here. This is going to be a bit of a longer one because we have sort of two little subsections within it, but this is going to be a fun one. We're really looking forward to doing this. It was hard to wait for this one. So obviously Cornel West announced his run for president on Monday. And Krystal and Kyle Kalinske were, I guess, driving down the road at the time, and they decided to make a video reacting to the news that Cornel West is running on the People's Party ticket, to the extent they have a ticket, because they don't have ballot access in too many places, but you guys get the picture here. We responded.
Well, they've got a path mark, I think, in Iowa.
Right, yeah, exactly. That they'll convert into an office space. Yeah, exactly. So we actually reacted to some of this video when we did the post-duopoly show on Revolutionary Blackout Network on Monday. So we're not going to replay those segments, but there's parts of this that are just fantastic that we have to get to. So first, we'll just play a brief part just to set this up for those of you guys who haven't seen this at all. Here they are, concerned trolling about Cornel West's choice of party.
Cornel West, I love Cornel West. We had him on Crystal Kyle and Friends.
He's a hero of mine.
He's a brilliant dude.
He's a hero of mine. She has gone full Anne Bancroft in The Graduate. She is Mrs. Robinson now.
She just seems kind of annoyed at the idea that they're doing this. Like, it seemed like something Kyle really felt they had to do.
They had a fight right before this.
She's bringing a little bit of negative energy to this. I'm sensing
to spaces where like people would disagree with him,
yes,
and making himself be really likable and really agreeable while not like
keep your eyes on the road. Yeah, he's great.
Yes.
Keep your eyes on the road.
He did a great job on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's just a very dynamic, charismatic, intelligent guy who I happen to agree with on probably 90% of policy stuff.
Yeah.
So I love Cornel West. I'll always love Cornel West. But honestly, my theory on this, and I'm curious what you think, Krystal, is that I don't think he looked into the People's Party at all. You know what I mean? Like, I genuinely think it's sort of like a Boomer moment where he was approached and, hey, we want you to run and be our candidate or whatever. Which, by the way, is a whole separate question, because usually the way these things worked is you have a fucking primary to determine who your candidate is going to be, and the People's Party apparently just anoint somebody.
God, I got to talk to my lawyer about that prenup.
We're the democracy people. Are you really? You just anointed somebody the head of your party. That's not the way you're supposed to have an election to figure out who's going to be the leader. But anyway.
Fair point.
Fair point. It's not like the Democrats have ever anointed the leader of their party. It's not like the Democrats have ever usurped the will of their voters to anoint their candidate of choice. No. Maybe Cornel West should have done more homework on his party, just like we researched the Democratic Party. What, you didn't find any red flags over your last 7 years of coverage of Democratic Party
nothing wrong
politics?
here.
Yeah,
nothing
wrong here. Nothing wrong here.
So that's a side point, but I don't think he knew like about all the issues with the People's Party.
All right, so there you have it. Now listen, I see a couple people in the chat. I think the choice to run as a People's Party candidate is worthy of some skepticism. A lot of people were wondering why he didn't try to run as a Green, although, as we will show in a few minutes here, that choice may not have been the best choice either, right? I mean, there's never going to be a perfect option, and that two people supporting a doomed Marianne Williamson campaign within the Democratic Party, which has shown complete hostility to the kinds of candidates that they are inclined to back, how they are feeling that they are in a place to criticize a candidate for running outside of the Democratic Party. That's pretty astounding right off the bat, no?
They want to play radical leftists. They don't want to be radical leftists.
Right.
There's a big difference. Backing Marianne, that's cocktail party progressivism, right? They're not going to get kicked out of the club for that.
No, because they're not actually threatening the Democrats. So this is now 10 minutes later.
That's it. That's
right.
really the dividing line. They can still go to the country club and hold their head high, although the way she's looking in this video, I don't know how much longer Kyle's going to be welcome to the clubs that she belongs in.
All right.
God damn, what the fuck was I thinking? I threw away my credibility for this. I got this fucking the bleach blonde bimbo over here.
Yeah. All right. So here we go. So this is 10 minutes later. Him really revealing what we were just saying, which is that they're not actually at the end of the day willing to actually threaten the Democratic Party come general election season. Here we go.
I don't like the whole, like, I'm not running to win thing in any scenario. I just don't like it. I think it's stupid. I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I don't think this idea of like, oh, I'm just raising awareness for the issues, I don't think that actually bears out in reality.
Pause.
God, the Gardener has a nice ass.
You are not running simply to raise issues when you're running third party. Because when you're running third party, you are guaranteed to be in the game on election day, which means you are affecting the outcome of the election.
Right.
So it's not just raising issues at that point. What you guys are doing with Marianne, ironically, is simply raising issues because Marianne Williamson will not be on the ballot in November. So everything you just said there about how you don't like issues campaigns, you only want a chance to win, absurd.
Yeah,
given
you
the
have
fact that
of course.
You are championing an issues candidate who will not affect the final count of the election.
What you really mean is you only like candidates with no chance of winning who you can back without being put in a position where you actually might threaten the Democrats come election day with that candidate. You don't want to be put in that position.
Exactly.
Then you're going to get the Jill Stein treatment. You're going to get the Susan Sarandon treatment. You don't have the cojones for it.
Exactly.
I think you should run to win. I think you should take it seriously and run to win. Now, in the final summation, though, I will say this. There is no contradiction here between like my support of Marianne Williamson in the primary versus what would happen in a general. Because if Marianne doesn't win the primary and then it's a general election and I
I'm sorry, man.
If
you just watch
by chance
Krystal
she
through this
doesn't
video,
win the primary.
Krystal is hilarious here.
Yeah, it's really good. It really is. It really works.
Krystal is just like her eyebrows lift every now and then. She's just like it's like she's in a Fellini movie.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. It does have that look.
With the big sunglasses.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Just completely bored. Like this is like a Fellini movie about an unfaithful wife. And this is the scene establishing why she's fucking the gardener. Because this is who she's married to.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so here's what he says here.
Support of Marianne Williamson in the primary versus what would happen in a general. Because if Marianne doesn't win the primary, and then it's a general election, and I, the resident of New York, have a choice to vote for Biden, Trump, or Cornel West, yeah, I'm going to cast my vote for Cornel West.
I, as a resident of New York, will vote for Cornel West in a three-way race. Notice that qualifier there. Would he vote for Cornel West against Biden or Trump in Michigan? No, he would not. That's why he made a point to specify in New York I'd vote against the Democrats. In other words, I am not willing to, when it counts, on Election Day, not primary day, November 2024, whatever that date is, I will not vote against the Democrats on that day in a place that matters. That is what he's saying right there. That is why they support Marianne Williamson, because Marianne Williamson will not pose that threat either. How could you? Okay, so for everybody who's thinking, I mean, I think it's single digits, the number of people who are still hanging on to this dirty break fantasy of Marianne. How could you still believe she's going to do a dirty break after you just heard him say that? He just said, I would only vote third party in a safe blue state. I would not risk ruining the Democrats' day in a swing state. So that obviously means that they are, at the end of the day, blue no matter who. If it's Marianne, great. If it's Biden, they're going to support Biden. They are not interested in threatening the Democrats, period.
Well, never has there been a better case of people by their enemies. When do you ever see a hit piece on Kyle? When do you ever see a hit piece on Krystal? Why would they? They're no threat.
Right.
They're giving the signal. You don't have to come after me. I'm safe. I'm playing games. I'm playing my little primary games. But in the end, I'm going to sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, Jimmy Dore gets the hit pieces.
Oh, yeah, from CNN, from NBC. Yeah, indeed.
They get that. Aaron Mate has been smeared. Matt Taibbi, forget about it.
Right,
of
course.
These are the people they come after. If they don't come after you, you're probably not doing your job.
Right, exactly. All right, here we go.
But the difference between me and a lot of other people on the left is I see a lot of hope and delusion that this is going to usher in the revolution or usher in real change.
As opposed to your hope and delusion about Marianne Williamson? Really?
Right.
All right, let's hear this. This is great.
Reality, you cannot fool yourself. This absolutely is a protest vote, which will change Dickie McGee's acts.
A protest vote?
Will you stop saying that?
Yeah,
will you stop saying Dickie McGee's acts? I don't know where the fuck you got that from, but it is the stupidest catchphrase I have ever heard.
Also, what do you mean a protest vote will change? Yeah.
You haven't sat Lance down and fucking told him he sounds like a moron every time he says that?
Dickie McGee's acts. Well, first of all, since when did these Bernie people, because I remember in 2016, there were some who voted Hillary in the end. There were some who voted Green. There were some who stayed out of it. I don't remember any of these Bernie people, these alumni of the Bernie movement, talking about how useless it is to vote third party, about how a protest vote just changes Dickie McGee's acts. First of all, a protest vote can influence the outcome of the election. It can cause massive disruption, as it did in 2016, where Jill Stein's vote totals were greater than Trump's margin of victory in a couple of different critical swing states. That is not changing Dickie McGee's acts. That's influencing the outcome of the election. That's disrupting the political process. Disruption. That is the goal here. Disruption. You guys are not interested in disruption. You guys talk a good game, but at the end of the day, you're good boys and girls. You don't want to disrupt. What you have to do now, to the extent that we are talking about engaging in electoral politics at all for 2024, it must be to disrupt. You must cause panic within the Democratic Party. Third-party runs cause panic, as we will demonstrate pretty soon. Marianne Williamson runs, no panic. That's why you support Marianne. RFK, less panic. I won't say no panic, because when you're polling double digits, you give them a little scare. But at the end of the day, they're going to make quick work of him, too. You watch.
Yeah, they write the occasional kind of condescending hit piece about them, but, it's just for the clicks. Like, their heart's not in it.
No.
Like, you can tell when they write these pieces about Marianne's staff. That's just like gossip, because not only is she running for president, she's this half-assed LA guru author. So she, for the press, she's this kooky LA Hollywood figure. So you have this scandal with, she's a maniac behind the scenes. That's an interesting story for them. So they'll cover that, but they're not threatened by her. If they were threatened by her, they'd be talking about a lot more than abuse of staff. They'd be coming at her hard. And with RFK, yeah, they write the occasional conspiracy theorist, blah, blah, blah. They don't really give a fuck. As soon as we will see later with some of our other exhibits, as soon as Cornel West announced, wow, man, they had their story straight right away.
Right away.
Right
we will
away.
get to that. Don't worry.
Yep.
We have got that. Let's listen to a little more of this.
Don't change anything. If you want to vote that way as a matter of principle, fine. But don't convince yourself it's anything other than like, I'm just doing a middle finger to the system with my 2% of other people in the country who agree with me on doing
Absolutely
this.
wrong. Absolutely demonstrably wrong. I just said, when you vote third party in a general election, you influence the outcome, especially when you do it in a swing state. Even if you don't do it in a swing state, you can help a third party get to 5%, which secures federal funding and makes it easier for them to run again in the future. It does not change nothing.
That's what you're trying to do.
It is astounding that two people who came out of the Bernie movement, who were at the very least very sympathetic to third-party voters coming out of those primaries because of how schmigged they were. I'm not allowed to say the R word until tomorrow, but I could say that now, right? Oh, YouTube changes their rule about this stuff tomorrow, by the way, folks. So we're just counting down the minutes.
Literally,
not midnight yet. 1 hour, 52 minutes.
Let's fuck it. Let's break out the whiskey, man.
Let's party, man. Let's have a countdown.
We'll keep it going until 12:01.
Exactly.
And then we'll be like,
yeah, exactly. All right. So anyway, demonstrably wrong.
It's a best case scenario if they even have ballot access. Like if
you can always write them in. You can
always write them in. But if they even are able to make that a real option for people across
which
the country.
I do think it'll either be a moot point because either they won't have ballot access, number one, or number two, he will say, I'm running as a People's Party candidate as an independent. And so he'll be running as an independent.
All right. So either way, he'll be an option to vote for on election day as a write-in, as an independent, or on the People's Party line. And that's bad because you're changing Dickie McGee's acts by voting for him, even though we just proved that that's not true.
I cannot believe she could get him to do that to his hair, and she can't get him to stop saying that.
The Dickie McGee's acts? Yeah. Interesting. That is interesting. All right, here we go.
I think it'll be one of those two things.
Yeah.
Is my best guess.
I mean, I will say, in terms of the general election, there's a huge interest in a potential independent candidate this time because,
I don't agree with you. I know what you're saying according to the poll. I know what you're saying, but I don't agree. But anyway, finish your point.
Finish. Let her finish. Let her finish. She obviously did not finish last night, so let her finish. All right? Don't talk over her. That's what got you into this mess in the first place, right? All right.
If there is anything Keaton knows about, it's how to maintain a healthy marriage.
Exactly. Word of advice. But anyway, so he says, I'm disagreeing because he thinks that it's a bluff. He thinks, people always say they're open to third parties, but in the end, they never vote for him. That's the point. Okay, let's go.
People are disgusted with the idea of like having to pick between Trump and Biden. There's no doubt about it. And so I think there are 2016 levels of interest in a third party candidate. In 2020, there wasn't really a significant third party effort that garnered much support. So I think you could theoretically have like Jill Stein levels of support for a third party candidate this time around.
It was a moron. I'm sorry. I was 28 during the 20. What was I? The 19. What was I? 2016. I was 29 going on 30. I remember the 2016 election. You were doing this for a living in 2016. You don't remember that the Jill Stein vote in, I believe it was Wisconsin, was greater than Trump's margin of victory. How can you, oh, is that just 3% doesn't mean anything, right? Of course it meant something. It was hugely consequential. That triggered the Democrats hard. It shook them up really hard. If you can get to 4% or 5% and post those numbers consistently, that causes major chaos within the electoral process, which is what we need to do right now, because what we're doing now is not working, obviously.
Right. It destroys the system as it exists, which should be our objective. It is not your objective.
Exactly.
Your objective is not really to change the system. It's to play civility politics, which Krystal always says she's against, but she's very much for. Backing Marianne is the ultimate empty gesture. That is civility politics in a nutshell. It's a politics where you have polite conversations on shows like this that have absolutely no chance of changing Dickie McGee's acts.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 3%.
But that was a lot more than in 2020. So that's that's what I mean.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the level of third-party support that, that I think someone could theoretically garner this time around. But again, you have to, Green Party is a real organization. They had ballot access almost everywhere, and that does make a huge difference in terms of what you're able to do.
And they have problems too, but it's nowhere near what the People's Party has. I mean, it's just not remotely close. But
but one thing that the People's Party has now is a beloved person running on their ticket, a well-known and well-respected beloved person on the ticket. They're not running Howie Hawkins or Joe Jorgensen or Gary Johnson or even Jill Stein. I know there's a lot of people who love Jill Stein. I respect Jill Stein a great deal. She was not the candidate to ignite a movement behind her, right? She just didn't have that X factor that you need, that an independent like Jesse Ventura had, right? Or even, Ross Perot had a lot of money, and so that's a little bit different. But you haven't had a third party come forward with a magnetic and well-known personality like a Cornel West now. So obviously this is more of a threat in the time being. Look, we'll see who the Greens come up with this time. But that is different about this. And you consistently do have a lot of people saying they want third party options. But the problem is you guys who are in a position to encourage people to vote third party anywhere and everywhere, no matter what it does to your beloved Democrats, you guys never direct people to do that. You always say, well, if you're in a swing state, you should do this, blah, blah, blah. If you're in New York, fine. If you're in a red state, fine. You need to actually have the courage to tell people, yes, vote for a third party of your liking before you vote inside the two-party system. That's what it takes, and you're not willing to go there. Instead, you're just gaslighting people about how it makes no difference. If it didn't make a difference, you wouldn't be so fucking worried about it. The Nation wouldn't be writing articles about it on day 3 of Cornel West's campaign.
Well, if they start saying that, they're going to get called right-wingers on the op-ed pages of the Washington Post.
Right.
And they are just not prepared to go there. My question is, could the Green Party, because I think this has been done in the ancient past of American politics when we had more active third parties, can third parties choose to endorse a candidate whether they have a relationship with them or not? Like, can't the Green Party endorse Cornel West and put him on their party line all over the country?
Yeah, they offered to do that with Bernie. Jill Stein offered Bernie her ballot line in 2016 after he got screwed. He turned it down.
Okay,
Jesse Ventura offered to run as a Green Party candidate in 2020. They turned him down. They wanted to run Howie Hawkins.
And this is exactly why I created this.
I love you, but you are not serious people.
If the Green Party were fucking serious, they'd be like, yeah. Money talks, bullshit walks. We want to fucking win. You know what, Cornel, you're our candidate.
Right. Why don't they make him an offer right now if they don't like him being on the People's Party?
Fucking shine box.
Right.
Cornel, you're the candidate.
Oh, we're going to talk about the Green Party. We have that coming up. Let's just get through the rest of this soon.
Yeah.
These polls too, where it's like 70% of the country is open to an independent candidate, and then every election rolls around, and every election it's like everybody who votes, which is only what, like 50% of the country, 60% of the country, it's overwhelmingly Democrats and Republicans. So it's like
that's partly because you tell them to. People like you who could actually create some momentum behind third parties, you don't. Instead, you make videos from your car about how it's a waste of time. It changes Dickie McGee's ex.
Polls say that. Like, people in theory love the idea, but then in reality, they don't. And again, the reason why, I'll reiterate my original point, it's the most important point. If you are not first and foremost putting front and center, we're going to get rid of.
All right, man. Living with him has shattered her nerves. Like as soon as he was like, and I'm going to make this point, her neck like involuntarily smacked.
Oh boy, here it comes. Here comes another one. All right, here we go. Let's listen to this because this is good.
Like, people in theory love the idea, but then in reality, they don't. And again, the reason why, I'll reiterate my original point, it's the most important point. If you are not first and foremost putting front and center, we're going to get rid of first past the post voting and get ranked choice voting, then this is all a total waste of time. And it's very weird to me that everybody likes to put the cart before the horse in this discussion. It's like, no, I'm not having this conversation until you do that first.
Oh, you're not.
If you do that and you come to me and say, Kyle, we need you to be a spokesperson for the Green Party, bro, sign me up. I'm in. Like, let's do this shit.
Bro,
right.
sign
But if
me
you
up,
don't
I'm in.
do that
You
first,
are.
it's like,
Okay, so
Sure you are. You'll be
what
there.
he just says there is, if you pass ranked choice voting, then I will support third party politics. What that is probably a fourth or fifth way of saying is I will support third party politics if third party politics doesn't threaten the duopoly. Because what does ranked choice voting afford people? It affords people the option to vote green, knowing that they're not going to screw the Democrats in the final count, because once the Greens get knocked out, their votes go to their second choice, which is Joe Biden.
Yeah, which is going to be the Democrat.
And this is the thing. Like, look, I'm for ranked choice voting because I've been successfully convinced by advocates of ranked choice voting that, yes, sort of assuaging the anxieties of a lot of these people about, oh, I don't want the Republican to win, or, oh, I don't want the Democrat to win on the right. Like, that is kind of worth doing as a tactic to just advance the cause of third party. So, yeah, fine, I'm for it. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to vote to win. And now, without ranked choice voting, I still say in this situation where you're going to be faced with either Biden or Trump or Biden or DeSantis, which in my mind is a million times worse. Biden, DeSantis is a million times more urgent to vote third party. If you cannot muster it up within you, given those dire options for president, if you don't have the courage in that moment to walk into a voting booth wherever the fuck you live, I don't care if it's a safe red state, safe blue state, or the closest swing state in the country, if you don't have it in you to go in there and vote third party, then you are not a threat to the system, period. And right now you must act as a threat. So if you want to threaten the system right now, you have to be looking very seriously at Cornel West. Now, as I said on Monday on RBN, the People's Party has a lot to answer for, and it may very well come to Nick Brana having to step the fuck down and get out of there, right? If there's too much baggage associated with him. They have 90 days, or now 87 days, since I said that 3 days ago. I would give them until Labor Day to prove that they are worth the investment. The investment, meaning working people donating money and time.
Right.
They have burned a lot of goodwill. They have to win that back. I would give them 3 months out of respect for Cornel West to do that. If they cannot do that, I cannot endorse the campaign in the sense that I cannot encourage working people to donate time and money. However, that is different from saying that on Election Day, I will not go into a booth and say, yeah, I'm voting for Cornel West. If he's on the People's Party line, I guess I'll vote for him there. If he's on an independent line, I'll vote for him there. If he's not on the ballot at all, if they can't get their shit together, I'll write him in. But there's no way I'm walking into a voting booth in November 2024 and not voting for a third-party candidate. And unless the Greens pull their heads out of their ass and nominate someone great, that's probably going to be Cornel West. Now, that is very different from me advising people to invest in his campaign. I cannot do that in good conscience until the People's Party pulls their heads out of their ass and gets their shit together, right? But on Election Day, if you want to be a threat when the deal goes down, You got to vote for a third-party candidate. I'm not saying it has to be Cornel West for you. That's up to you. But you have to go in there and vote to disrupt. Otherwise, don't engage at all. I mean, if you don't want to engage in electoral politics, you think it's all bullshit, that's valid too. But if you're going to engage, if it's fucking Biden Trump or Biden DeSantis, how could you not go in there and vote for third party?
Well, if you're in a no-win situation, the only thing that makes sense is to change the game. So playing within the Democratic Party, it's a no-win situation. You cannot win. So the only thing you can possibly do that holds any hope of changing the system is to change the game. You got to flip the table. You got to change all the rules. Third party gives you the potential to do that. And the arguments that Kyle is making here are the arguments they always make to demoralize people about going in that direction. I would argue, what do you have to lose?
Of course. Of
Right?
course.
You're not getting anything out of the Democrats. You're not changing the Democrats. We tried it.
The sky over New York City is orange. It's orange. Okay? Joe Biden approved
And it's
the
not
Willow
as
Project,
cool as
which
it
is
looks
the
in
biggest
Blade
drilling
Runner.
project in the history of federal lands. How are you going to tell me on any score it is not worth voting none of the above third party? I want to just make very clear what I'm saying here. Dr. Nick Riviera, Keaton only giving them 3 months. Understand what I'm saying.
Hey,
I'm
Dr.
saying-
Nick.
Yeah. I'm saying 3 months to prove you're worth the investment. I'm not saying they have to get on the ballot in 3 months, right? I'm saying you have to prove over these next 90 days that you are serious about rallying people behind a cause that is worth the investment
that it's not a
of
circle
working people.
jerk.
That it's not a circle jerk, that this is not just the basically Cornel West publicity tour with Nick Brano leeching money out of it. You have to be able to prove that to people. Because I've met a lot of people who have gotten involved with that organization who are not plants, they are not ops, they are not, infiltrators, who feel very burned. And that's a big problem for you. And so you have to turn that around. You now have a beloved figure representing your party. You have an opportunity to turn your organization around, but you have to do it. And you can't make any excuses for not doing it. So that's what I mean by 3 months. I don't mean get on every state ballot in 3 months. That's not possible. What I mean is prove to the people who are open to joining the Cornel West campaign that they can donate their time and money and not feel like they're going to get fucked for it. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
If the left were serious, they'd go full Spartacus. Every single left organization in the country with a ballot line would endorse Cornel West. The Working Families Party, the Green Party, whatever other skells have some kind of fucking ballot line in the backwoods of Kentucky, they'd all get together and say, okay, well, here's a chance to try to push it over 5%. That's
Right.
it. That's the only thing that makes any sense, right? Otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing? You really want to do this fucking bullshit dance? The Howard Hawkins, Howard Hawkins fucking bullshit in 4 years again.
That's great. Okay, so speaking of Howard Hawkins, we're gonna
That's and for the rest of the election season.
Yeah, we're gonna
he shall
call him
be
Howard
Hawkins.
Howard Hawkins. We should invite him on the show. Good, mispronounce his name on purpose. Howard Hawkins.
bully him on the air.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Hey,
yeah.
Howard Hawkins.
Hey, what's up, Hawkins, my boy? All right, we're gonna get into Howard Hawkins in a second. Let's catch up on some super chats though, because it's been a while since we checked in. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Congressman, what's your opinion on Dien Bien Phu? Is that? Oh, you're talking about Jamal Bowman?
Vietnam.
Yeah, no, you're talking about the Bowman. If he caught up to him and asked him that, yeah, I would imagine that would have been a tough one. Dave Delarai, merch idea: DueDissidence Jew bags.
Jew bags. That's a pretty good idea.
Tote bags, yeah, that's not bad.
We would totally do that.
Yeah, we are going to get some merch going. We're scaling this thing out, but we will get to it. Thank you, Dave. That's a good idea. Sorry. Oh, what did I do? Okay, there we go. James Vander Zanden. Krystal and Kyle won't even mention extra bulla. I know. Total snub. Total snub.
Well, it just shows they don't really want to change the system.
Maybe extra bulla should start angling for Cornel's VP. Maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe we should practice what we preach. If we're telling people to get serious, maybe we should start playing for vice president. I think that would be that would be the serious.
I don't know. I just don't know if Bulla will go for it. He has his heart set on the presidency.
Yeah, his ego, big ego.
We have to work him into it. We're gonna have to buy him a lot of crack.
Yeah, right, exactly. We'll have to sweeten the deal. Newlywed couple. I would rather watch an instruction video, perhaps one which is entitled "The Guide to Cleaning Your Kitchen and Bathroom." Yeah, that thing went on for 16 minutes. It was a long one.
Okay, so listen, like I've already watched it a couple times, so I was very caught up in Krystal's body language and facial gestures. Watch that video again and just forget about Kyle. Just watch Krystal.
Yeah, no, it's good.
She is fucking hilarious.
It is good. It is funny.
It's just you just see these little ticks of somebody who cannot stand the person next to her. It's just
what I got was the sense that
it seems like he pressured her into doing this video.
Into doing the video. I think she didn't want it.
She didn't want to do the video. But also, I've said this since they started doing these fucking weird posed in our bedroom political videos. It seems like he really kind of dominates those conversations in a weird way. And maybe she's kind of getting sick of it. Like he does it here. I mean, he generally does it in those videos.
Well, I think he's just more excited about doing them. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
I think he's just more. I think his heart's a little more into it. I think is the issue there. Marianne won't even agree to debate extra bulla. I know. We got to force him onto that stage, James.
She's such a hypocrite.
We'll try it. Yeah, I know. Big time hypocrite. Kyle is bona fide Dickie McGee's ex. Yeah.
And the other bit he likes to work is no, bro, we're just saying, bro, that we got to...
Yeah.
God, man. That's what happens when you get non-theater people trying to work a bit.
I know, yeah, trying to work a bit. Exactly. All right, folks, we'll get to some more super chats in a few minutes, but let's press on here because we talked a little bit about the Green Party in our previous segment. Cornel West has obviously opted to run for president on the People's Party ticket, and a lot of people thought, well, why couldn't he have just run as a Green because they already have ballot access? Wouldn't this be so much easier? And the answer is, to a large extent, obviously, yes, it would be. However, here is the standard bearer currently for the Green Party, 2020 Green Party nominee Howie Hawkins, who fared absolutely miserably in the 2020 race. Here's a tweet of his from a few days ago that went somewhat viral because now that the Green Party's in the conversation, they're being vetted a little more seriously. He puts up this tweet. Some in the peace movement call for a ceasefire and negotiations by U.S.-led Western imperialists with Russian imperialists to carve up Ukraine between them and call it peace. Stop pressuring Ukraine to accept partition. Sign this petition. So he literally links to a petition discouraging Ukraine to agree to peace talks. This is the Green Party standard bearer? This was the former Green Party nominee? This is the organization that we're supposed to lend some credibility to as a left movement? You can't even get this right? The Greens are to the right of many Republicans on this issue if this guy represents them. Like, if this guy is not expelled from the party at this point, if this guy is not driven out of town for this, then how can the Greens, Russell, I don't know if you want to get your sound drop ready again, but how can you not tell the Greens, you have it?
Yep.
Good.
I love you, but you are not serious people.
What the fuck kind of left-wing organization has someone as prominent as Howie Hawkins is within that organization fire off a tweet literally passing around a petition to discourage peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? How basic is that? How easy is that? You whiff on that? That's just extraordinary.
Well, especially the whole logic of it. So unless you're the big dog in the fight, you're not an imperialist. Like you don't have imperialist aligned interests because you're the smaller one between the two dogs fighting over the bone. Like you're not. This was the most corrupt nation in Europe before this war. The money that we're pouring in there is disappearing, and they won't allow an audit. When people started talking about an audit, there was tremendous pushback from Ukraine. We have reports from Cy Hirsch about generals driving around in BMWs and taking luxury vacations, and them, having fights with Zelensky about how the money is going to be split up. What did you think was going to happen when you poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the most corrupt country in Europe? And now you have the New York Times actually admitting that, they're fond of, swastikas, right? They're framing it in their special way. But even they're having to admit that there are Nazis in the front lines of the Ukrainian military. But they're like an innocent party. And this framing is very much the kind of framing that you get from real Ukraine supporters, right? That they're this innocent democracy that's being, oppressed. And I mean, yes, as far as it goes. But at the same time, we had that interesting person call in last week who was a Ukrainian Russian.
Yeah, Stanislav, yeah.
Yeah, there are these Ukrainian Russians, and this is what the Gray Zone has been reporting since before there was a war, that the Ukrainians were shelling these people in the East who consider themselves Russian. It's not, what's the word? Complicated. It's a complicated fucking situation. It's not as simple as, Russian imperialism. There are these people in the East who would probably rather be a part of Russia.
Well, look, the
imperialism... So are their rights being violated by being forced to remain a part of Ukraine?
Sure thing. And on the question of imperialism, I would say it's not even close in that score. I mean, look, I'm anti-war. I'm against all war. War is hell. War is vulgar. War is an offense to the human race. And so I do not support any war anywhere. But in terms of imperialism, Russia still to this day does not want their flag flying over Kiev. Russia didn't even want Ukraine. Russia had 3 demands: independence for the separatist regions, Crimea, which they had already annexed and recognized as theirs, and they wanted, obviously, Ukraine to stay out of NATO. So you tell me who the imperialists are. The imperialists are the forces who have pushed NATO expansion far beyond where they initially promised to, and now are pressuring Ukraine.
Not 1 inch east.
Right, not 1 inch east. Went back on that promise decades ago, and now they come
pretty
to
much
Ukraine
immediately
in 2021. Yes, exactly. In 2021, November, and tell the Ukrainian government, hey, maybe you should join NATO. Who are the imperialists there? The Russians aren't even trying to take over Ukraine. They don't even want the country. So how can you say this is a war of imperialism on their part? It's a hostile act. I thought it was an extreme act. Like I said, I'm for diplomacy everywhere in all directions. I'm not defending it, certainly. But you can't say it's Western imperialism on one hand, Russian imperialism on the other hand. Russia doesn't even want to take over the neighboring country. They just wanted those 3 things. Those demands could have been met. Those demands eventually will be met. That's what Jeremy Corbyn said at the start of the war. All wars end in diplomacy eventually, right? Now, diplomacy looks different because people's hands change throughout the war, right? But they all end with people agreeing to stop the fighting. So why don't we just skip the fighting part and get right to the talking part, right? But that advice obviously was not followed. Jeremy Corbyn, raging anti-Semite that he is, right? They pull out those smears on anybody who talks about, dignity and peace and civility.
Yeah. Him and Roger Waters.
Right.
And not only that, nobody ever talks about this, but Boris Johnson was over there with a peace plan. We were only a few months into the war that apparently both Zelensky and Putin were open to, but we were not, because it did not serve U.S. interests.
Exactly.
When you look at just the level of deception and disregard for human life, it's almost difficult to contemplate being so evil that you would want to destroy this country and drag out this war for the profit of defense contractors and to play out some game of real politic where the United States gets to stave off the decline of its empire at Russia and China's expense.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's go now to a really, really fun piece. Okay, so Cornel West announced he was running for president on Monday, and today an article was published in The Nation by Joan Walsh, which the headline currently reads...
Joan Walsh, who was not a talented enough hack for even NBC. Even NBC would not keep her on the air.
No, they got rid of her. She wrote an article that is currently titled, Cornel West should not be running for president.
Yeah,
he doesn't see a third party playing a spoiler role to Democrats as bad, and that's inevitable. Now, before we get into this article, because we will, it's important to note that the original headline was not Cornel West should not be running for president. It was Cornel West has no business running for president, as I proved here. So this is where I ratioed them, folks. Your boy ratioed the nation. Me, with my 4,000 subscribers, ratioed a magazine with 1.2 million. So they put this piece out. Let's be clear. Running for president, Cornel West will only take votes from Biden and help elect a Republican. Here's the headline. Cornel West should not be running for president. I replied, your original headline said he had no business running. You changed it to look less like the condescending rich white liberal scumbags that you are. That currently has 553 likes to the nation's 372 likes on the original article. You know what that's called? That's called a ratio. Hey, Russell, well, you haven't done this yet. Why don't you get out that singing bowl for your co-host here? Give me a little celebratory
all right,
ring
I'll
here.
buy that.
It's not every day you ratio an outlet with 1 million subs, but
No.
I
I asked the young boys that I bought this from at the site of the Buddha's first preaching, under what circumstances can I use this singing bowl? And they specifically said
a ratio. Yeah, a ratio. It comes in handy during ratios. Exactly. There we go.
I'm even giving you the rim job.
Yeah. Got him. But yeah, no, have no business running for president. Right? But no, that makes us sound a little too condescending. So let's change it to say the more mild, well, he should not be running for president, right? So here it is. Joan Walsh. Cornel West should not be running for president. This is a great country. Anyone can run for president, but only Joe Biden should run for president. That sentence, I guess, got edited out. That said, Cornel West has no business running for president from the left, right, or center. Okay, so they kept the line in the copy. They just didn't put it in the headline. I guess it pissed too many people off. I loved early DSA leader Cornel West. I love the author of the 1993 book Race Matters, Cornel West. I loved Cornel West when he belonged to a pussy organization called the DSA, which doesn't allow clapping at their conferences. I also loved the identity politics version of Cornel West, which posed no real threat to power. Now that he's running third party, though, I don't know. My mind has changed. I loved everything about West until he... What? Until he threatened to disrupt the system, until he supported Ralph Nader against then Vice President Al Gore.
Until he did some shit.
In 2000. Right.
Until he did some shit beyond talking shit on Al Sharpton's show.
Exactly. I loved Cornel West until he put his money where his mouth was. Then, oh no, out of bounds. A lot of my political friends supported Ralph Nader back then, and a lot of them have since apologized. Even Michael Moore. The Iraqi people and the people of the entire globe are so much the worse since Gore, the climate change believer and war skeptic, was defeated by George W. Bush that year with an assist from the Supreme Court and Nader's Green Party. West never apologized. He didn't see a third party playing a spoiler role to Democrats as bad, obviously, since he's about to do it again. This part gets really infuriating, especially, look, for those who don't know who Joan Walsh is, okay, because here Joan Walsh starts opining on Cornel West's statements, which are somewhat racially charged against Barack Obama. Does this look like a woman who should be, passing judgment on that? This old white-haired white woman is about to start lecturing him about what he said about Barack Obama.
It's not their place, except when it is.
Except when it is. Except when it's in service of running interference for the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
All right. So in 2008, okay, he did support Barack Obama in 2008, but he turned on him fairly quickly. Yeah, he turned on him once he threw homeowners out of their homes when he promised that he was going to be a champion of working people, which he did fairly early on. Yeah.
Apparently, he did not get the memo that you are not to side with the homeowners if you want to be treated well by the press.
Exactly. Making criticisms that went way beyond Obama's political decisions. Then he supported Jill Stein in 2016. More recently, West has gone off the deep end. He promoted his 2024 candidacy on the fringe People's Party line. Fringe. With an appearance, here we go, on former comedian Russell Brand's web show, now frequented by right-wingers. And weeks ago, he praised Florida's extremist governor, Ron DeSantis, in the Wall Street Journal for his revolutionary defense of the classics. All right, let's take a quick game break there to litigate this a little bit, because that caught my eye when it came out. So, yeah, go ahead. If you got that, we could pull that up.
Okay,
so establish what we're looking at. This has been on my radar for a while. It's just the Wall Street Journal paywalls everything, and so we couldn't read it until fairly recently when I guess Russell read it in preparation for this show.
All right, so don't think less of us, but we decided it is
for
a
research
fair
purposes.
Business expense. We had to subscribe to the Wall Street Journal because they very often have op-eds and articles and they fucking paywall everything.
Yeah.
So we kind of need access to it. All right. So DeSantis's revolutionary defense of the classics, promoting the Western canon shouldn't only be a Republican talking point. All right. So let me just explain what this whole thing is about. All right, so there is an alternative to the SAT test called the Classic Learning Test. Ron DeSantis has now made people eligible for scholarships by taking that as an alternative to the SAT. Now, up until now, I think it's mostly been Christian colleges that will accept that as a substitute for the SAT. But not because, from the research I did before the show, not because it's actually done with a Christian perspective. It actually, the reading list that the test is based on has very few people who are associated with Christianity. Thomas Aquinas is on there, but if you're focusing on the Western canon, fair enough. But Gandhi is in there as well. Aristotle, what you'd expect from something focused on the fruits of a classical education. So now Ron DeSantis, now that he's made it legitimate in Florida, that's probably going to spread to some other states. Now I want to point out, and we put this link in the description, in about a year ago, Cornel West actually wrote a lengthier defense of the classics and a classical education in response to Howard University dismantling its classics department. And that is definitely worth a read. But given that this is what she's directly referencing, we'll take a look at this one instead. So this is, by the way, co-written by Jeremy Wayne Tate, who's the CEO of the Classical Learning Test, the company that offers that test. Governor Ron DeSantis just gave a welcome boost to the classical education movement. He signed legislation allowing high school students to qualify for Bright Future scholarships, a state fund for college education, by submitting scores from the Classic Learning Test instead of the SAT alone. This move will likely be portrayed wrongly as partisan and conservative, but the greatest works of civilization have always been about spurring not preventing radical change. They teach us about the revolutionary ideas of the past and help us better understand the present. The richest ideas of what it means to be human are those that have stood the test of time. Many of the seminal works of literature, history, philosophy, science, and theology were revolutionary in their respective ages. Turn the pages of Galileo Galilei's Two New Sciences, and you'll experience the alteration of humanity's view of itself in relation to the heavens. By disproving the then common belief that the planets revolved around the Earth rather than the sun, Galileo laid the foundation for modern science. Isaac Newton swept aside what remained of the old world scientific superstitions, only to find himself upstaged 2 centuries later by Albert Einstein's relativity. Like revolutionary ideas today, the ideas of yesterday were provocative and in many cases much more consequential. Galileo was put on trial because he upset the status quo. In the 13th century, Bishop Stephen Tempier of Paris condemned key works of theologian Thomas Aquinas for being too radical. Soviet dissident Alexander how do you say that? Solzhenitsyn?
Yeah, Solzhenitsyn, yeah.
Solzhenitsyn.
Solzhenitsyn.
As I knew I was going to butcher this when I read it. And civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. were imprisoned for their views. In colonial America, James Madison and his co-authors feared printing their names on the Federalist Papers, so they hid under aliases. Even the most mild-mannered of philosophers stirred trouble for thinking against the grain. Plato watched his great teacher Socrates put to death for his teachings. Revolutionary figures of the past give us insight into the present and allow for reflection on the consequences of their choices. Julius Caesar, one of antiquity's most recognizable leaders, teaches us the cost of revolution through his histories. By crossing into Rome with his armies, he ended the Republic and created the Roman Empire, a crime for which he paid with his life. But in his first-hand descriptions of the often brutal tactics he employed to achieve political transformation, he left behind deep insight. Caesar's direct and simple prose conveys the reality of going to war, all without reference to contemporary conflicts. That's one of the virtues of the classics. They are a means of considering what is true without invoking the blind partisanship that encourages thoughtless action. There is nothing we need more today than the cultivation of reason and understanding. That's why Mr. DeSantis's support of classic education has universal merit that transcends partisanship. Education based on values, logic, and discipline isn't Republican. It's timeless. So now, okay, you can agree with that or you cannot agree with it, but it is not some horrific right-wing screed. It is not aligning with DeSantis. I'm sure Cornel West in the next breath would slam DeSantis for other policies. But if you've paid any attention to Cornel West, he's not a hateful man. It's not part of his philosophy. He calls everyone brother and sister. He's very prepared to heap praise on you where it's due, and he'll also call you a, what did he call Obama? A black puppet of Wall Street.
Mascot of Wall Street, yeah.
So, he'll do that too. That's Cornel West. But you can already see the approach that they're taking, because when I was researching for this segment, I saw it on, of course, Joy Reid's blog. I saw it in an op-ed in the Washington Post. They're lining people up to do what Matt Taibbi calls throwing the ick on you, right? They're lining up, and how do they do that? You're a right-winger, right? That's the worst thing you can be with these people, right? They're trying to rule Cornel West out of bounds before anyone stops to even listen to what he has to say.
Exactly. And look, in terms of a defense of the classics, because that article came across my radar a few weeks ago, and I thought maybe we should cover it before I had any idea.
The Washington Post one.
No, the Wall Street Journal. This one that you just read.
Oh, that one.
It was paywalled, so I didn't think to do it because it was just a paywalled article, and I didn't want to give the Wall Street Journal any money. But they eventually broke us. But anyway, it occurred to me that
look, I feel like we're getting back at them by giving this to our
look, for free, yeah, exactly. But look, a defense of the classics, that is actually, I believe, an important thing for the left to communicate to people. One of the reasons why people are hesitant to give the left any power is because people have it in their head that whatever economic gains may be in store for them, through any sorts of social reforms, are going to come alongside this cultural transformation that they're not comfortable with. And so, for a left to communicate a reverence for the classics, right, is part of signaling that no, actually, we're pro healthcare and we're pro Shakespeare. Like, we're not interested in upending everything that people think about their society or their culture or their traditions. We're simply here to make everyone's lives a little easier and a little better, right? And that's something that communicates in ways that a lot of the left doesn't want to, and that's part of the reason why people are so hesitant to give the left any power, because they are afraid that they are going to intrude in ways that they are not welcome. Whereas a lot of these economic reforms, just look at the polling. They're all extremely popular.
Well, and this is why I like to do some culture war segments. And some people on our channel will say, I don't care about this. And my answer is, you need to. You need to, because no one's going to listen to us on economics as long as they think we're with Joan Walsh, as long as they think we're with Joy Reid, as long as they think we're with these fucking people. They don't want to hear what we have to say about healthcare. We have got to, at the very least, make it clear we're not with them. Ideally, you want to crush this entire line of thought to the point that it's just not a presence in the public anymore, that no one thinks this is going to be imposed on them. We talked about this before the show. When you talk about the Western canon today, who is graduating with a degree in English literature without reading Baldwin, without reading Langston Hughes, without reading The Invisible Man, without reading Nora Zeal Hurston? Who is graduating with a degree in literature that is just dead white men? Who is graduating that way? So this is, in many ways, at this point, it's a solution in search of a problem. I don't think we were really teaching literature that way anymore. And Cornel West, in his more extended piece about Howard University in the Washington Post, he argues the answer is addition, not subtraction.
Right.
And you can't blame the entirety of Western culture for bad ideas, because there are good ideas there too. Right. You can't say it's only the bad ideas that define this entire cultural tradition. What was really interesting is he makes it very clear in his Howard University article that it's his tradition too, that it's our tradition. He makes a very strong case, arguing, he talks about how Frederick Douglass comforted himself and educated himself reading Cicero, reading Plato secretly when he was still a slave. And he argues that this is part of our African American culture as well. We should take it for ourselves. We should take what's good in it. And that is the way you bring people together. And I think the people who are arguing otherwise have a vested financial, reputational, and status interest in tearing people apart and claiming status in the process.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. All right, let's get back to this article. We'll skip down a little bit here. West tried to frame his opposition to Obama. She's talking about his remarks against Obama as a universalist defense of poor and working class people. They didn't get enough help from Obama's Wall Street adjacent administration, I admit. Oh, that's nice of you to admit that. But calling the president a black mascot of Wall Street oligarchs and a black puppet of corporate plutocrats was awful. Well, I'm sorry, no, it was not. First of all,
awful.
Is it your first of all, is it your place to say it was awful? Miss Joan Walsh? No, I don't think so. But secondly, it was not awful.
Are you speaking for black people, Joan?
Right. It was not awful. West went on to claim that Obama was afraid of free black men thanks to his white ancestry and Ivy League education. West was at Princeton then after stints at Harvard and Yale. Yeah, but West is not afraid of free black men. That's the difference.
That's the difference, yeah.
Right? West is not West was not a mascot of Wall Street, a puppet of corporate oligarchs. Right? Obama feels most comfortable with middle-class white and Jewish men who consider themselves very smart, very savvy, and very effective in getting what they want, West went on. Asked about that by the New York Times, West replied, "It's in no way an attempt to devalue white or Jewish brothers. It's an objective fact. In his administration, he's got a significant number of very smart white brothers and very smart Jewish brothers. You think that's unimportant?" As Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote at the time, political critiques about the size of the stimulus package, about drone attacks in Pakistan, about Obama not fighting hard enough for the public option are fair game. But I think calling someone a black mascot or a black puppet because they don't agree with you is much less so. If the thing you don't agree with them about are drone strikes...
She got her black friend in there to back her up.
Yeah. If the thing you don't agree with them about are drone strikes, then that makes it a bit personal, does it not? It's not a simple civil disagreement we can have, right? About not fighting hard enough for a public option. What about keeping homeowners in their homes? None of that? Yeah, he spoke in a very charged way because it was a very emotionally charged moment. The country was in crisis. This guy ran on hope and change, which, according to the campaign books that have been written, Obama didn't want to run on those slogans. He thought they were silly. So the point is that you're not just dealing with a guy who has a good faith disagreement with you. You don't owe a politician, especially a president, the assumption of good faith. Cornel West was calling him out for being a fucking fake and a fucking liar because that's what Barack Obama was and still is to this day. And he had every right to speak to him in exactly that language. And good on him for doing it. He doesn't owe anyone any apology for that, much less Joan fucking Walsh. Okay.
Well, would Joan Walsh ever call Barack Obama going to desperate people and pretending to drink the water in Flint awful?
Right.
Would
exactly.
Would that be in print?
Oh, you shouldn't call them names over that. No, that's just awful. That's over the line. West and Nader then tried to launch a primary attack on Obama. Senator Bernie Sanders thought about it, wisely decided against it. There wasn't, and in my opinion, still isn't a Democratic Party constituency for the kind of left-wing policies or an attack on a black president they wanted to launch. So there's still not
She's
a Democratic
such a
Party.
fucking propagandist. Like the way that she uses language, not a president, a black president, right? What difference does that make?
What she's saying here is that the Democrats, that the Democratic base can't handle criticism of a black president. Right. What she's saying here is
yes.
She's saying the Democratic base are weak and stupid.
Right.
That's what it means. If you can't handle criticism of a president who happens to be black, you're obviously not criticizing. You're obviously not talking about criticizing a president because they're black. But if they can't handle criticizing a black president, or they are not susceptible to the kind of left-wing politics that he espouses, I would argue she is in agreement with me that Democratic voters are weak and dumb. But now West wants to challenge Joe Biden.
I don't know how many RFK stands we have left after him siding with a Jewish fanatic against Roger Waters. But for any who are left, this is who you would need to win over.
Right, you need to win over Joan Walsh. Well, this is the main point that I wanted to make here. We can say what we feel about Joan Walsh now because Cornel West is outside the Democratic Party. See, this is the main benefit of running outside the Democratic Party. In 2020, we couldn't talk about people like Joan Walsh the way we're talking about them now because we needed Joan Walsh's readership to vote for Bernie Sanders.
Right.
So we had to play nice because if you alienate the nation readers, you can't win the primary because they have outsized influence within the primary process. We're not interested in whoever's fucking dumb enough to read this article and absorb it as truth and as wisdom. We don't need them anymore. How liberating is that? Doesn't it feel good not to need these people's approval anymore?
That's it.
That's why you run outside the duopoly, because when you run outside the duopoly, you appeal to real people who may watch guys like Russell Brand or Joe Rogan or Bill Maher, who don't absorb this as religiously as the idiots who read this do. Now West wants to challenge Biden, who is indeed a white president, who nonetheless won the Democratic presidential nomination in 2020 thanks to overwhelming black support, which he will have again.
Any Democrat will get that.
Of course.
Any Democrat will get that. So what does that mean?
Okay, here we go.
People love Joe Biden.
This is where it gets even better. What does West bring to the race? A roster of legitimate complaints, but without any plan for achievable change. I'm running for truth and justice as a presidential candidate for the People's Party to reintroduce America to the best of itself, fighting to end poverty, mass incarceration, ending wars, and ecological collapse, guaranteeing housing, healthcare, education, and living wages for all. Then she has the gall to say, who could disagree? Well, let me tell you who would disagree. Joe Biden would disagree with just about all of that. Joe Biden created the carceral state, check. Joe Biden is agitating for World Wars III and IV, check. Joe Biden signed the Willow Project into existence, check. No action on health care, no action on education, no minimum wage. He let the Senate parliamentarian nix that. Housing, I don't know. Have we heard any public housing plans from Joe Biden? No, I have not heard anything about that.
I've never heard a word from him about housing.
It could all be the sort of idealistic word collage we get from Marianne Williamson. But in West's case, running as a third-party candidate poses a far more serious risk to Biden's re-election and the fate of the country. Just to be clear, he will only take votes away from Biden and help elect a Republican. Look at this writing here. It could all be the sort of idealistic word collage we get from Marianne, but in West's case, running as a third party poses a serious risk. This goes back to what we were saying when we talked about Krystal and Kyle. When you run as a nice, idealistic, hopeful progressive, this is a word collage to people like Joan Walsh. Yeah, it's a nice wish list of things that we all, in a perfect world, would be able to pass. Not because Joan Walsh needs it. She's rich. She doesn't need any of this. This is all abstract to her. But it's a nice word collage coming from a nice team player like Marianne. When a third-party candidate says it, it poses a risk. What's another word for risk? Threat. What have I been saying throughout this show? The way you pose a threat is to do what Cornel West is doing. Do you want to be a threat on Election Day, or do you want to not be a threat on Election Day? That's your choice. Marianne Williamson, not a threat. Not a threat. Okay? RFK, not going to end up being much of a threat. This is what poses a threat. Even if he were to run as a Democrat like Williamson and the deeply off Robert Kennedy, she doesn't even bother.
deeply off.
Deeply off. She doesn't even bother elaborating on that at all.
Like she is such an epitome of an East Coast shitlib.
Yeah, Robert Kennedy doesn't get any. He doesn't get any explanation at all.
This is prose that only the ladies who lunch could love.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. That's what it's for. The ladies who lunch.
Deeply off RFK Jr. He would still hurt Biden because a primary gives the bored supine media a reason to hype Dems in disarray stories. Right, because the media is not in the tank for Joe Biden. That's a real problem.
The media is really working against you guys. And the Dems are not at all in disarray either.
No, right. Exactly.
You got a transportation secretary who couldn't run a bike path.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll skip down here. I don't want to bore the audience too much with some of that. West's campaign video featured an appearance on Bill Maher's Real Time. Unfortunately, Maher, who has also hosted me 3 times, has become an anti-woke, anti-Democrat crusader. Maybe that makes a coalition to West? To me, it makes an alliance of privileged yet strangely aggrieved men. Plus Russell Brand. And then here, to be fair, Nina Turner also supports West. She just, admits that a lot of her points are negated by that final one. But look at this. Maher is becoming an anti-Democrat crusader. Maybe that makes a coalition to West. Well, yeah, maybe it does. You know why? Because he's not running as a Democrat, right? This is what these people cannot, for the life of them, get in their heads. Third-party voters hate Democrats. That's why they don't vote for them.
Since when is Bill Maher anti-Democrat? He's anti-woke. This fucking guy thought Amy Klobuchar was a good idea.
Yeah, he's also anti-left, but yeah, I mean, this guy wants Amy Klobuchar. Exactly. Senator Bernie Sanders has already endorsed Biden. West seems to be trolling right-wing venues for support. Criticize Biden all you want, but show me your political and electoral coalition alternative unless you want to turn the world back over to Trump or equally bad DeSantis. I'm sad that West wound up here. I'd like him to find a way out of this destructive political cul-de-sac, but I don't know what that would be. And until then, it's incumbent on everyone who knows his tragic political past to talk about it. Wow. What a smear job. What a job that was. And, look, I tweeted this out earlier, and I'll just, as a response to this, because they're already coming at you with the line that a vote for Cornel West is a vote for the GOP, right? It's a vote for Trump. It's a vote for DeSantis, right? It's the same thing they say every single time.
Yep.
Here's my advice to everybody, okay? Rather than try and, spin it and saying, well, it's Biden's job to earn my vote and I don't owe my vote to anybody. These are all defenses they've heard a million times. To me, the best way to combat that is to just say the following. If I vote for Cornel West, or in your case, if you vote Green, I'm not saying you got to vote for Cornel West. If you vote Green or you vote Libertarian or you write in somebody, if I vote for a third-party anti-duopoly alternative, I'm voting for that person because I hope that person wins. I'm hoping that they catch fire and win. But if they don't win and they take enough votes from Biden to throw the election to the GOP, I'm fine with that too. So lay off of me with that fucking bullshit. I'm fine with it. I am fine. Look, I live in New York. If I lived in Pennsylvania, I'd vote for Cornel West at this point, right? So you have to just tell them, yeah, we are willing to ruin your Tuesday night in November of next year. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this to cause disruption, whatever that may be. We are fine with whatever outcome results from us voting third party. We do not care. We do not care. That's what you have to tell them. Because that, A, is, in my case, intellectually honest, is where I actually am coming from. But that scares them. That makes them panic because now they know. Now your cards are on the table. You're saying, yeah, I understand all your fretting and all your, neurotic bullshit. Republicans are going to win if you do this. You're saying, I don't care. I don't care what happens.
Right.
I'm voting for Cornel West because I think he'd be the best president. I understand there's a risk of tipping the scales to the GOP if I do that. That's a risk I'm perfectly willing to take. I don't care. And in my case, it's not tipping the scales to the GOP because if I didn't have Cornel West to vote for, I wouldn't vote at all.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's the case with a lot of people who vote third party. They always make it as if those were guaranteed Democrat votes. And generally, if somebody's voting Green, they left the voting for Democrats exit way back on the highway. They're not voting Democrat anyway. If there were no Green Party candidate, they just wouldn't vote at all. But even so, yeah, you have to make it clear that you're willing to go kamikaze and burn down the entire system. Otherwise, what leverage do you have? If you're not willing to cross that Rubicon of, yeah, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if the Republican wins. I don't care. In a way, in an accelerationist spirit, probably be better anyway for my objectives.
Hey, if it's Biden Trump, I might buy that. If it's Biden DeSantis, I might buy that. If it's Biden Trump, I'm sorry, Biden might be the accelerationist in that equation. He seriously might. I mean, I'm sorry.
Sure.
World War III lasting 10 years versus World War III ending in a few weeks, which I believe Trump could actually do if he sat Zelensky down and say, listen, you're cut off. Work this shit out. Like that's something he could actually, that's a promise he could actually deliver on, as opposed to like the wall or something, right?
Right.
In that reality, Biden might be the accelerationist, right?
Well, and then, you know, you explain to people, well, working people's wages have not gone up in 50 years. So in the end, I'm not an elite. What do I get out of it being a Democrat instead of a Republican? You tell me. What has Joe Biden done for me? What did I get out of Joe Biden being president? I wouldn't have gotten out of Donald Trump being president. Either way, it's pretty much nothing for the average person.
Right. Exactly. That's if you want to go that far. I would respond, yeah, no, I understand. I understand everything that could happen as a result of me voting for a third party. I don't care.
Right.
I do not care. I do not feel partial to Joe Biden against the GOP in any sense. It does not bother me in the least to know that this third party vote could result in a GOP win. Now, in my case, it doesn't, because like I said, if I didn't have a third party member to vote for, I just wouldn't vote at all. In 2016, I didn't vote. I didn't vote for Joe Stein in 2016. I didn't vote in November.
And we're in New York.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we're in New York. Right? Yeah, plus we're in New York.
Nobody gives a shit what we do.
Yeah.
I've been voting for a black man since 2008, but the last couple times it was Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Russell just can't vote for an old white man. He just can't.
I won't do it.
He won't do that. All right, one more.
Actually, that's what we should tell them.
Yeah, no,
I can't vote for Biden. He's an old white man.
No, I can't vote for an old white man. I won't do it. In good conscience, I cannot do that.
Actually, that should be the party line, because that will create so much cognitive dissonance for the Joan Walshes. Right. They will have no idea how to respond to that.
Well,
if you tell them that as if you're really serious about it, like, nah, I can't because of white supremacy. I can't keep white people in office. How would they respond to that? Because that's like their theology.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, if Jesse Ventura ran for president, they wouldn't have had to change the headline from has no business running for president to should not run for president.
Right.
The reason they changed the headline is because they can't have a white woman speak in such condescending voice to a progressive black candidate.
Which is the only voice she writes in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so that's why they had to change it. So his candidacy is already fucking with these people. I have to say it is good. It is off to a good start in that way. I will say that. One more paragraph here. Speaking of old white men, Senator Bernie Sanders has already endorsed Biden. West seems to be trolling right-wing venues. Oh wait, I already read this. What am I doing? I'm losing my mind here. It's been 3 hours. That's why. All right, so that's it. So that's that segment. All right, we got through that. Let's do some super chats, and then we got one more segment to go. Long one. I knew it was going to be a long show tonight, but that's why I told you guys we had a great show, because we had so much stuff. This was there's a bunch of stories we didn't cover this week, but we're hopefully getting it right for you guys. Thanks for sticking around. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, please. Marianne and RFK, thanks, long story short, are just giving us a half a hand job. See? You guys
I don't think it's until midnight that we can talk about hand jobs.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, we're counting down. We're counting down here. Not surprised Kyle Eminem is a vapor. Yeah, typical Kyle. Yeah, that fits his personality with the vaping. I noticed that too.
It does.
Ryan Laverty with the $20 this time. Thank you, Ryan. You gave us that previous super chat as well. It's very generous of you. Nice car. Is that bought by Krystal's ex-husband with his millions of investments of stay-at-home schooling? Rank Choice gives his priestess a 5th or 6th place chance in primaries or general. Rank Choice, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look, I talked about the Rank Choice voting. It's totally fitting that Kyle would be like, yeah, no, talk to me about third parties once you pass ranked choice voting, which the two major parties will never give you. Why would either of these two major parties voluntarily undermine their own power when they don't have to? Why? How are you going to get ranked choice voting through the two-party system nationally?
It's like trying to get a pay cut for Congress or term limits, anything that affects them negatively.
All that shit. I gotta say, with all these comments from you nasty bastards about Krystal and Kyle, we really are tempting Jordan Sheridan to cancel on us.
I mean, they're having a field day with their hand jobs.
I know. They're like,
Yeah,
well, this
I mean,
is
wait until you see what you get if you get the top tier Patreon membership.
Yeah, there you go. Right, exactly. Well, what does the Vanguard say? This is the most delusional and depraved audience on YouTube in this chat. You guys are living up to that.
Well, ours? Did they say
yeah,
ours?
that's what they say. Yeah, we cater to the most delusional and depraved audience.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah, guilty as charged. That's why it's such a fun show. That's why it's entertaining. Don't ever break up. You guys have great chemistry. Wink. You're talking about Krystal and Kyle. You talking about Russell and I. I don't know. Could apply either way.
Where are my sunglasses?
Sarcastically, when it comes to Russell, yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. If we lived near each other, we could make a great Sunday funny out of that video. We could do one from the car
with the Lance Bass.
Yeah, I'm talking and you're just zoning out in the passenger seat. Baza, thanks, and thank you, Miss McMullen. That's a very generous donation. We appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Baza, thank you for the $5. Krystal and Kyle are the balls. Yeah, Krystal and Kyle ball, indeed. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, man, you guys are you really had a lot of fun with that, as I suspected you would. Meteor Dreams. Is the post-duopoly show your guys' answer to the leftist mafia? I don't know if it was consciously formed that way. Actually, I think we just kind of, when RBN came to us about doing that, as I understood it, it was intended to just kind of be a one-night thing. But then I think it went so well that we decided to kind of make it a continuing sort of side project for all of us.
Yeah. It just wound up happening.
Like we were going to do it. I think the first post-duopoly show we were going to do had to do with all the Marianne stuff, right? Because there was this fissure between, a lot of the leftists
we weren't even planning on it being, it wasn't going to be ongoing.
Yeah, we weren't planning on doing it as a recurring thing, but it went well enough that we thought, okay, we've got something here. Let's keep it going. So we're going to do those bi-weekly. Looks like every other Monday or Tuesday, looks like. Those will be those shows. I'm sorry. I didn't get to your second question. Also, what is your guys' take to what happened in the Glendale, California school district brawl? Are you talking about the ambush? Was there some sort of brawl between like anti-woke people and a pride event? Is that what you're talking about? Because maybe that is, but I am not familiar with that off the top of my head.
I mean,
I'll look into it.
I have on my radar. I mean, I didn't want to pitch it because I didn't want to give Keaton a nervous breakdown with a culture war story. But there are like Muslims who have been protesting, and you have the Muslims on the one side, and you have I gotta say, like all white. People with the pride.
No, this is
signs.
pro and anti-LGBT protesters.
Yeah. But on one side, that's what it was. But on the one side was Muslims saying it was against their religious beliefs. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, and they like testified saying, we shouldn't be discriminated against for having religious beliefs regarding sex and gender, and that's discriminating against us, and we shouldn't be called extremists. And then you had the other side, which from the footage I saw, was like all white lips and these brown Muslims facing off over this. If it's the one that I saw.
Okay. Seems like I just have to look into it more.
But I'm not. I am not up on it. If it's what? Oh yeah. They're saying in the chat. So it was Armenians and not Muslims. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I didn't hear much about it, but I will look into it.
I might have looked at a different case. I saw a video on a different case then.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like something I'd want to look into for sure. Part of the reason we're adding a third stream is so we can cover more stuff. But obviously, moving the Thursday show up to Wednesday will make it easier for us to cover more stuff as it comes out, but also to sort of divide everything because like. Doing these shows on Thursday night, by the time we're on, a lot of the news is already broken because news tends to break early in the week because it doesn't tend to break on the weekend. So on a day like today, we had like 20 stories to choose from. Most of the prep for this show went into picking what we were going to cover. It wasn't even so much prepping the segments. It was filtering out, okay, what can we put in and have the show come in under 6 hours, basically. So yeah, but we will look into that. Thank you.
There was a lot of stuff we wanted to cover.
Oh, a ton of stuff. There's a ton of stuff. This is a very, very fast. Like these news cycles are really, really chock full of content for this time of year. Usually like late spring, early summer in an off election year with no national elections. Usually this is kind of a slow period. Not now, man. It is just on fire.
No, we had a culture war story. We cut it. It was going to be, we
cut two. Two culture war stories.
Oh, yeah.
We cut both of them. Yeah.
So for those who say we're deeply unserious.
Yeah.
We threw the culture war stories overboard instead of the politics ones.
Yes, because we felt like we had all this stuff we had to get to.
And there was no way I was dropping the Iron Sheik.
No, that was non-negotiable on Russ's part. The Green Party also already decided not to choose Howie. They hate him. They're dumb because they're a scam forcing you to pay them to work for free. All right, so you're anti-Green Party too. Are you a libertarian?
She's working for a libertarian.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
For like a campaign.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, for governor, right? Yeah. You wanted to put them in touch with us, right? For an interview? I remember that down in North Carolina. Yeah, no, look, I've been very unimpressed with the Green Party. This is why early on, I mean, this was part of the rationale for MPP early on, right? Before a lot of those issues surfaced, was that the Green Party has not only branded themselves poorly, as Nick from RBN said on the stream earlier, I caught a little bit. You know, Green Party says you're a tree hugger party, you're a hippie party. Like that does not have mainstream appeal just from a branding point of view.
I think that's why he made that decision.
Could be, but also
I think he didn't want the baggage and the pre-existing institutional political bullshit that comes with the Green Party.
Right. Look, he put Joe Rogan in his campaign launch ad, a snippet of him laughing it up with Joe Rogan. That plays great to the average person. It plays terrible to the Green Party activist dweeb.
Right.
It just does. The Green Party would not let you put an ad out like that. You can't. Whoa, wait a minute. We can't run an ad where you're smiling at Joe Rogan. Right. That's problematic, right? I mean, it's all this crap that you have to deal with, you know. So that's why I think he chose.
You know, that
one
was
of the reasons.
That was maybe my first thing with AOC where I was like, maybe we made a mistake elevating this one when she insisted that Bernie denounce the Rogan endorsement.
Yeah, they said it was like pulling teeth getting her to show up for rallies for Bernie after he touted the Rogan endorsement. She didn't feel comfortable doing it, right?
What a fucking moron.
What a fucking idiot. See, like I said, when you're not running as a Democrat, you could talk like this. If we had a candidate, if we were supporting Marianne, we couldn't talk like this because doing so would be sabotaging our candidate.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
Exactly, man. No, that's one thing I could tell you, man. Like I said, and I'm serious about this. I'm not joking about this. Like, MPP has a lot to prove before I could endorse the campaign fully and tell people to donate time and money. Absolutely. But if we do end up on the Cornel train, let me tell you, for people who thought the Bernie bros were rough, oh, you ain't seen a fucking thing yet. You ain't seen nothing. The Bernie bros were playing within the confines of the Democratic Party. So as nasty as we seemed, we were holding back about 80% of what we wanted to say. Well, if we get a candidate to back outside the two-party system, I think we've already given you a taste of what that's going to look like in terms of online discourse. And I've already ratioed the nation. So
and if you think we are not the kind of people to be able to coordinate the release of 50,000 marbles on the floor of the DNC convention, you got another thing coming. We are definitely those guys.
Tricky guys over here. The brawl in Glendale was astroturfed by the right. All right, we'll have to look into that.
We have to look into it.
I don't know enough. I'm not Gavin from the van. I'm not gonna research it right now and tell you what I think of it. You know, I'm not gonna Google it while we're on. I looked it up briefly to make sure I had the right story, but I'm not. There's too much there. I can't do it. Caitlin, 99 cents. Thank you for the super sticker. We appreciate that. A lot more super chats to get to. Wow. All right. We're gonna do two more, then we're gonna do our last segment, and then we'll get the rest of the super chats before we sign off. But thank you guys very much for your support. It's much appreciated. Cool Blue, if you're potty training your dog, Pages of the Nation laid out on the floor can come in handy. A Joan Walsh piece may speed up the process. Yo, is Bhaskar Sunkara, who was, the founder of Jacobin, is he the president of the nation now? I think he is. Tell me, Chad, if I'm wrong about that. I'm pretty sure he is, which is really saying something. I mean, because he put out a poll on Twitter asking if Cornel should have run as a Democrat, and it was like 70% said yes, and then like 10% said he shouldn't have run at all. Like only 15% of people who follow him, this big DSA Jacobin guy, thought that he should run independent, which I thought was pretty pathetic, pretty awful.
It's not Katrina Vanden Heuvel running the nation anymore?
No, I'm pretty sure it's Bhaskar Sunkara. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. I'm sure our chat would know. You guys are up on all this. I'm pretty sure he's heading that now. Jan Clements. Joan Walsh wrote a book called What's the Matter with White People? I guess she was talking about herself. Yeah, she did write that book. Jan, did you post that? Did you reply to my tweet with the cover of that book? See, it's funny now because you guys have different screen names in YouTube world versus Twitter world. So when you respond to me on Twitter, I'm like, oh, who's that? And then when we're in the YouTube chat, I find out. But yeah, you showed me that. That's interesting.
That is a rich white lady who's trying to buy herself insurance for the event of a revolution.
Yeah, exactly.
No. I wrote What's the Matter with White People. Don't come for me.
Yeah. No, that's pretty. That is. Hold on. I'm okay. So I have a super chat that we'll get to. I can't jump the line in principle, but that's interesting. All right, we'll get to that. In the end, we will get to that soon.
Is there breaking news?
No, it's just something about the Sabby Cornel interview, which is interesting, but we will talk about that when we get to it. Right now, let's go to our final segment of the night.
I see what you're.
Yeah, we'll get to it, and I'm obviously gonna have to watch that interview. On Tuesday, June 6th, Tucker Carlson delivered on his promise to bring his new content to Twitter. He dropped episode 1 of his new series on the platform. We're going to play a preview in just a second. I will just note, however, he chose June 6th to drop this episode, which happens to be the 29-month anniversary of the January 6th riot. What do you think about that? Seems a little suspicious. Seems like he was sending a signal, right? What are the odds? What are the odds of that? What are the odds of that? All right, here's episode 1.
What I've always said, man. Dig through Tucker's hair. You're gonna find the mark.
Yeah, you'll find the mark. Find the mark. All right, here we go. Episode 1, new Tucker Carlson show. This is a little preview.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning, it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight, puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So, if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure.
All right. So that's a minute 40 seconds worth. The whole episode is a little over 10 minutes. Lot to look into there. First of all, I think it is telling that Tucker in his first episode back decided not to lean into the hottest culture war topic of the day, but to talk about current events in Ukraine. I also think, in that little minute 40-second segment there, it was meta in the sense that he really took aim at cable news, right? He took aim at his old medium, right. Called it out for being the sort of like superficial blue pill version of the news that it is. And he goes on in that segment, as we mentioned earlier in the show, to talk about the UFOs and how is this not on, the top of people's radar? Or how is the news not covering this? He goes on to really combine this sort of debunking of the mainstream, media's, overarching Ukraine narrative, which exists, obviously throughout CNN and MSNBC, but setting aside his show, most of Fox News is on board with that also. So he sort of integrated that into a critique of cable news, right? Of his old sort of stomping ground. And so it was an interesting episode 1. And it did phenomenally well. The tweet with the video on it currently has over 100 million views.
Right. Now he's dropped a second one, which is really telling Fox News to go fuck themselves. Because apparently they sent a letter to his lawyers immediately after that dropped, claiming he was in breach of contract. Am I jumping on an exhibit? Am I stepping on an exhibit?
No, I got it right here. I will just pull it up. There's no problem. Keep talking.
Okay.
This is it. This is the story, as Russell said. They're saying he breached his contract, and Tucker's lawyers, in response, said, here, Fox defends its very existence on freedom of speech grounds. Now they want to take Tucker Carlson's right to speak freely away from him because he took to social media to share his thoughts on current events. So what that speaks to is the fact that, Tucker calls this episode 1 of his new show, which, he has a right to brand it how he wants.
Right.
It's basically Tucker talking into the camera and posting it on his social media. I mean, you can call that a show, I guess. But at this point, he hasn't even monetized it in any way. It's not like there's ads playing on that, or anything like that.
Right. And they're arguing, and I think it's a strong case, that that's a freedom of speech issue, that he's a private citizen giving his opinion on current events. The contract doesn't cover that. If he went on CNN, then he'd be in breach of contract. Based on the terms that are included in that article, that he can't basically that he can't do a show in any medium, any electronic medium, streaming medium that exists or that may be invented. I thought that was an interesting clause. They're kind of predicting generative AI there.
Right.
You can't. He's got his Swanson dinner money.
That's the thing. Tucker Carlson is, as far as we know, at least, not making any money off of this new show. He doesn't need the money. He's never needed the money. He was born rich, so he's never needed the money. Not only was he born rich, he's made a fucking fortune off of the Daily Caller and his Fox News gigs, and God knows how much he makes for speaking engagements. I mean, the guy's drowning in money. The guy does not need money.
No, look.
So he's not doing this for the money, and he's, as far as we know, he's not making anything. He's posting to his social media. He's making videos that he's posting on. I mean, you can't sue somebody for doing that. It's a breach of contract.
Well, Tucker claims that I think he says it's a Fox executive told him that they're trying to keep him off the air through 2025. In other words, through after the election, which I believe, because this is the establishment's worst fucking nightmare. A guy who has enough money that he doesn't have to worry about consequences. A guy who's completely independently wealthy, doesn't need to ever work again, doesn't have to worry about what bridges he burns on a platform owned by a guy with a similar mindset and similar stats and a similar position, who has committed himself to basically telling the entire establishment to go fuck themselves. I'm gonna platform people like this, and there's nothing you could do about it. This is a DEFCON 5 situation for the establishment. The idea that Tucker's just going to be out there during the election season with no network, no controls. That's why I said when they fired him, he's much more dangerous now than he was yesterday.
Right. Of course. Because now you're on a platform where you don't have to placate. Not only can you say what you want in terms of like there not being any censorship, right? You can curse, you can cover whatever topics you want, right? I mean, I as erratic as Elon has been, I doubt Elon Musk has the balls to penalize Tucker Carlson, for any content. Right?
How many views did this get?
Over 100 million. Yeah.
Yeah. What does CNN get on an average show? 500,000.
Yeah, a few 100,000. Yeah, a lot of their shows don't even crack 1 million. Right. So just blowing the competition out of the water, not even close. And not only do you have to now worry about censorship, but you also don't have to worry about the priorities of the corporate entity that you're working for. I'm sure there are a lot of topics that Tucker covered on Fox that he only covered because it was Fox, and you have to throw some red meat to the chuds, you know what I mean? Because it's showbiz, right? It's the old Hollywood system. You do one movie for me, one for the system, right? You make your art house movie, then you do the big. Yes, probably same thing. Half the segments he did were probably segments that he would have probably rather not done, but all right, whatever. You got to keep Fox happy. Now,
should you really hire a drag queen for your 6-year-old's birthday party?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Is it wrong to wonder
Is it
about
wrong?
that? Yeah. Yeah. Am I crazy?
I don't think most people in America think so.
Yeah. Joe Biden thinks so, apparently. So I mean, now he can not only is he not hamstrung by the censorship that comes with being on a cable news show, he can curate his own content now. He decides what to cover and what not to cover in a way that he couldn't have had full control over that over at Fox.
And the kind of person he is, it always seemed like he was particularly fascinated by this question of the military-industrial complex and the way it interacts with the media, which obviously there was only so far that he could push that while he was at Fox. And now this is their worst nightmare. An independently wealthy guy with a platform being run by an independently wealthy guy.
Right, exactly.
Committed to not pulling him off.
Right, exactly. All right, folks. So we are almost done for the evening here. We are at 3 hours and 39 minutes. A long one, but a good one. Cool Blue 71. Thanks for the 199. Move ahead, deny D's, dismiss parasites like Walsh. Well, yeah, I agree. Indeed. Mosaic. 1 out of 2. 2 read paywall news articles. What? Read paywall news articles go to okay. So did you post it? Like is there a hack?
Did you tell us where to go?
He probably did, just not in a super chat. 3W. Okay. He's putting in the website that we can go to. I understand that. That was a coded message. Thank you, Mosaic. Thank you. Tusker. Thanks for the $5. Top tier of DueDissidence Patreon is just Russell sending you grainy pictures of his stamp collection and Keaton asking for more money when his computer breaks. Yeah, when my kid pushes my laptop off of the kitchen counter and the screen breaks. That happened a few months ago.
Oh, you know what?
And Tusker was very generous in donating to help pay for it, as were a lot of you guys. So thank you for that.
I just want to say, because somebody corrected me in the chat, and in case of nuclear war, I don't want people running around thinking, oh, it's only DEFCON 1. We're not even close. I did the inverse. DEFCON 1 is the nuclear. That's the highest level.
That's the highest one. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah, I thought it was the opposite too.
That wasn't just me.
No.
You know, I bet they got it wrong
When
in
did that
TV
change?
shows and
Why
movies.
did they change it?
Why
Yeah.
did they change it? That's very suspicious. They changed it at the same exact time that a man named Zelensky became the president of Ukraine.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Are they
Coincidence?
trying to confuse us? Do they want us confused?
Do they
Yeah.
want us to not know that the nukes are coming by changing the codes?
Yeah. All right. So here's the super chat. Rodrigo, thank you for the $4.99. Tonight, Sabby pressed Cornel West on if he'll tell people to vote for Biden at the end of the campaign. He gave a Marianne RFK-like answer. Game over. Well, the thing that's confusing to me about that is he's running on a third party, which is going to put him on the ballot in November. So how is that even possible? I'll look into it. I'm obviously going to watch the full interview. So I will look into that, and we will absolutely cover that. We'll cover the interview no matter what. We'll obviously talk about it. But, yeah, thanks for the heads up on that. We will definitely look into it. That's obviously a massive, massive red flag if he's signaling that he's going to sheepdog people into the Biden camp. I will say this, okay? And I know this is opening a can of worms. This is taking a risk at 3 hours and 42 minutes in. I know the People's Party upper management is extremely hostile to Democrats. I find it tough to believe that they would put their name for what their name is worth, which I understand is not worth much at this point. I get that. I doubt very much they would be down for a campaign that's going to end in an endorsement of Joe Biden. That seems really hard for me to believe.
That doesn't mean he wouldn't do it personally.
Yeah, but I would think that would be something they might have worked out beforehand. We will see. We will see. Like I said, I'll have to.
We have to watch the interview.
We have to take. Yeah, we have to watch it. It's really silly for me to comment on that until I watch it. But thank you for bringing that to our attention, Rodrigo. We appreciate it, and thank you for the donation. Sandy M. looked it up. Bhaskar Sankara is the president of the nation. Yes, I thought so.
Thank you,
I
Sandy.
thought so. Thank you for the check on that and the confirmation. We appreciate it. All right, everybody. Well, that is our program. We did all right for not having Cornel West on the show, I'd say. Thank you very much. You guys are all very, very generous. Thank you for being here. Please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button as well. That's very important. We are within 200 subs of that coveted 10,000 mark. Thank you guys all for helping us get there. We will be back here on Sunday night at 7 p.m. We will be hosting Jordan Sheridan that night. That will be a pretty intense show. We are looking forward to it. We don't think you'll want to miss that, so please make sure you mark your calendars. And then if you do sign up at patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com, which I will post now in the chats, you can get exclusive access to our Patreon and Substack member live streams. The next one is coming up on Tuesday, June 13th at 8 p.m. That will be live on Rumble. We will send out the invitation for a private Rumble stream. It'll just be a link that you click and go watch the stream. We had a great crowd in for our last one. It was a lot of fun. The last one we did was the first one we ever tried. And so we're looking forward to doing that again. But patreon.com really helps us out.
That one, just because of the stuff that's in the news this week, we have a lot of very interesting, not safe for YouTube content.
Yes.
For this week's private Patreon stream. So if you haven't signed up, sign up.
Yeah, if you haven't signed up, sign up. Indeed.
Sign up, God damn it.
It'll be a lot of fun. That's going to be a really fun
$2 cover charge only, folks.
$2 cover charge only, folks. That's right. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence, DueDissidence.substack.com. Even if you don't sign up for a paid Substack membership, if you sign up at Substack for free, it puts you on an email list. You get alerts whenever we go live. It helps you stay in touch with us. We really appreciate that. So, yes, indeed. We hope you all sign up at Substack for free, no matter where else you are in touch with us. That's a big, big help. Will you send, Kinky says, will you send the link by email, which I never use anymore? Yeah, that's how you'll get it. It'll go to your email inbox. So you got to check your email that you used up to sign up to Patreon or Substack, whichever one you're signed up on. I forget which one you're on as, Kinky. But, yeah, it'll come out either the night before or the morning of. The thing about Rumble streams is they don't let you schedule a live stream more than 24 hours in advance. So I either have to do it the night before or the morning of. But you will get it either way. That's going to be a great show. But Sunday night, 7 p.m., Jordan Sheridan, that's going to be a really, really good show, I think. I think that'll be a really, really interesting conversation. We're very much looking forward to it.
That is going to be a barn burner, man.
It's going to be a barn burner. Absolutely. Absolutely. Who says time to drop the volume? Why? Because he's about to ring the bell. He's about to ring the bull. A couple of viewers.
What do you think this is, DSA?
I think this, yeah,
we don't play that shit, homie.
Right, exactly. No, some people were complaining because they listen with their earbuds, and when you ring it, it's loud. But hey, that's what it is. You know
what's coming by now.
We always give a warning when it's coming. We never just spring it on you. We'll always say, "Hey, get the singing bowl out."
We have a standard sign off. It never changes.
That's right. Never changes. Folks, it was a pleasure, as always. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you back here Sunday night. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage. Here it comes. Those
Get
with
ready.
sensitive ears. The anti-clap people in the audience.
Have a great evening.
Please clap.